might be live. I might not. I think I've been live sitting here staring at the screen for 7 seconds. Math, it's hard. I'm going to wait to make sure this comes up before I really start talking. If you guys can let me know you can hear me. We know that has been a problem in the past. And it's not something I can easily check myself. I think somebody said that the schedule says I'm doing a macaw, but the live stream screen says an owl. It's a mistake. I copy and paste these. Where does it say macaw? I thought I fixed that. Oh yeah, it is a mistake. It is not a macaw that I'm working on tonight. I'll fix that in the description later. It is definitely an eagle owl. Before I get started, I want to thank a couple of people. I got a card from Anne from Fine Art Anne. She had this printed at Fine Art America. I'm actually kind of excited to see this because I've not seen their cards yet. You guys know I like Fine Art America myself for selling, and we'll put this here so you can really see. It's so pretty, and the quality of this card is awesome, which makes me really excited because, you know, I haven't seen my own stuff on a lot of the Fine Art America stuff, but it's a beautiful card. This is available from Anne. I'm not going to try to say your last name. I will have to put that in the video description later on, but beautiful card. Thank you so much. This was sent to my P.O. box for my birthday. I finally got to my P.O. box. I'm normally not able to get to it until after the post office is closed, which in theory shouldn't be a problem, except that they locked me out of they changed the keys when they weren't supposed to, so I had to go back and then they gave me new keys. It's taken a couple trips for them to realize they screwed it up. They kept saying that I had too much stuff in my box and that's why it wouldn't open. Yeah, anyway. So the other thing that I want to, let's see, making sure everything, yeah, good, everyone can hear me. The other thing I want to thank is, or other thing, apparently she's a thing. Other person I want to thank is Lisa Marie Ford. I don't know if you can see all that because I've got this zoomed in so much. She made a coloring book, and I believe this is available on Amazon. I will have to find a link for that as well. But it's got some really cool wildlife. It's a really full coloring book. There are a ton of pages in here. The quality of this coloring book is really nice. This is so cool, and I cannot even imagine the amount of work. Oh, pretty butterfly. I can't imagine. I don't think you can even see that. There, we'll do it that way. Pretty butterfly. I can't imagine the amount of work that this has taken to make a coloring book like this. You are awesome. Let me make sure I didn't screw up my screen too much there. Nope, you can still see the owl. Okay, so I just wanted to throw those out there. This one is Lisa Marie Ford. It is called A Nature's Curiosities Coloring Collection. Many meetings. Really cool. So thank you guys so much. That was really fun. That's the most fun stuff I found in my P.O. box. I don't normally use that for things, so I don't typically get fun stuff in there. So on to the owl. This one is from wildlifereferencephotos.com. If you want to draw this exact owl, you can purchase the rights to do that there. With their website, you can, and this is not a sponsored video. I have done a sponsored video, well, sort of sponsored. They gave me a few reference photos myself. I've done, if you want to call that a sponsored video in the past, just for transparency. That is not what this is. I purchased a lot of photos from them. But with them, the photos are $5 each, and they have thousands of wildlife photos over on their site. Or you can get 5 photos for $10 is what I typically do. And so I just get a bunch of them, and if I find one photo I want, I do the 5-pack, and then I just save them on my drive until I am in the mood to draw that one, which is where I downloaded this forever ago. So we are moving on. Oh, good. Pix Bailey saw that I thanked you. Yay. I hope Anne's here too and saw that. I will have to message her or privately if not. Let's see. I've got lights, camera, action. Looking at your comments really quickly. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Paul says everything sounds good. Reminder to record. Eric Draws wants to know how I'm feeling and what did I have. Yeah, I missed last night. Normally I do the live streams on Wednesday. I don't know if I ate something bad. My stomach just didn't feel well at all. And then the night before I started not feeling well, I worked out, and my husband is really into different gym stuff and working out muscles harder than normal. I don't know. He's able to, using the weights, have you stand in a certain way that works things that you didn't even know you had muscles there. And the weights that they have at our gym, I tried some stuff that I hadn't done before. Usually I just used the actual machine, which I can control the weights on better. And the weights 5 pounds was the lowest they had. And you think 5 pounds, that's not that much. But the way that you stand and the way you move to do these certain exercises, it was too much for me. And I instantly felt where, like, in my core, I thought I pulled something. I don't know. I overdid. I wasn't even feeling it in my arms like I should have. I was feeling it in my core. And the next day, which is the day my stomach didn't feel well at all. So I thought it was all combined. The burning in my chest was I was just in so much pain. I couldn't deal with it. So I couldn't get any work done that night, which was a problem. So I needed to get more caught up. Anyway, so that's basically what happened. And once I figured out it was muscles causing the pain, I was able to take ibuprofen and soak in the bath and everything felt better. But that is what happened to me. And I can deal with, like, when I'm nauseated, pain to that extent. And I don't know if it's because of the fibromyalgia, everything hurts worse, but it sucked. That was hard. So I think I'm going to back off those weights and use the machines for a while until I build up. I need to apparently work on my core strength some more. So that is what happened there and why we are late, or a day late. And I need to move my computer. Hold on 1 second. I'm having a hard time reaching this. Here we go. Let's see. Orion Fine Art says, I am very needy in the answer to this question. I bought some pigment markers and the typo paper, I think you mean Yupo paper, and I'm having trouble blending them. I do not want to use any brushes. They're so streaky. Assuming you're using Yupo paper and not whatever typo paper might be, I'm thinking that is a typo on its own. You're just going to have to practice with it. It's not an instant. They blend really well with your fingers. I like them best with my fingers when I'm blending those. But I mean, without seeing what you're doing, there's no way for me to really get an idea. You may want to let them dry just a few seconds before you start blending. That may be part of why they're streaky. Without seeing, there's no way for me to really give you many more tips than that. So I apologize for that. ETK wants to know what camcorder I am using. It is a Canon. It's listed in the video description. It's a Canon I don't know. It's in the video description. Actually, no. This is the okay, it depends on which one you want. The camera that I record my normal videos with that you see on Wednesdays and the vlogs, at the bottom of all of those, there's a link to the camcorder. It's listed exactly which camcorder I'm using. Tonight, I am using the Logitech, I want to say E930E or E9, I don't know. Logitech, some kind of webcams. There's two of them, and those are listed in this video's video description. Lisa says, have you done any work in pan pastels and your option, I think you mean opinion of them? Jason Morgan got me hooked. You hooked me on pencils. Best of all, that they work together. No, I don't like pastels. I am just not a fan of how they feel on my hands. They weird me out. They're dry, and I wish I had a photo to show you guys. You would crack up. I'm obsessed with hand lotion. Like, I wake up during the night and put lotion on my hands and feet several times a night. And I'm using good lotion, so it's not like I'm, like, I don't know. I'm just super obsessive about my hands being moisturized all the time, my hands and my feet. And the amount of hand lotions, Body Shop lotions especially, I have such a ridiculous amount of lotions. Pastels are the opposite of hand lotion. They make my hands feel terrible, and I hate them. And even with the blending tools, I just don't like them. I don't like the feel. They are not a medium that I personally choose to work in. I love the results you get. Like the work Jason does and the work I've seen a lot of other people do with them. They're amazing to look at. I just don't like working in them myself. Oops, scroll too far. Something you'll hear me say 800 times tonight. Moise wants to know, when you started with acrylics, what brand did you use? I've always used Liquitex Basics, although I have been playing around a little bit more with some of the other brands. I don't have my mouse. Hold on 1 second. I cannot move my reference photo if I don't have my mouse. So let's see, what part am I working on tonight? I'm focusing on this area down here, so I'll get going on that as I chat with you guys. And I need a white pencil, preferably one that is very sharp. The sharpener that I'm using tonight, this is a cheapy little metal, everywhere carries these little cheapy metal ones. I don't even know, normally I use, yeah, this one's probably a Coom sharpener, doesn't say. And those, I have a lot of these type of sharpeners you guys have seen me use before, and all of mine need the blades changed, and I'm lazy and don't want to do it, so I've been using these little cheap metal ones, and they work so well. I love these little sharpeners. Andrew says, I have a question. How do you varnish an airbrush painting without a matte finish? Without a matte finish. I'm not sure what your question is there. I have a question. How do you varnish an airbrush painting without a matte finish? Huh? You mean you want a gloss finish on it? I'm not sure what you're asking there. With airbrush, though, I generally will use a spray varnish first And then I'll put because I don't ever just airbrush by itself. I'm always airbrushing in combination with brushwork. And I really like the Varnish by Liquitex. It is a high gloss varnish, but I spray first. I use a regular spray first and then varnish on top of that. I don't know that that helps you because I'm not sure I understand what you mean by without a matte finish. Without a matte finish. So use a gloss varnish. That answer seems too easy, so I think I'm missing something there. Oops, and there we go. Scroll too far. Shocker. This really, chat needs a better way to handle this. Okay. Orion says, LOL, it is typo paper. I've tried using, it is typo. Typo? I don't know what typo paper is, but if it is typo paper, that is not the right paper. It's supposed to be Yupo paper, Y-U-P-O, I think. So that could be your problem. Okay, no, it corrected again. It is Yupo. So probably, I'm guessing, let it dry a little bit and then blend with your fingers. You don't want to let it dry for like 10 minutes. And we're going back to talking about the pigment markers, but you still want to give it a little bit so that it'll kind of get a little bit tacky. That may blend better for you, but you're going to have streaks no matter what. It depends on how streaky. And again, without seeing it, I'm not sure exactly what the problem is. Colin says, do you have any brands of acrylic paint that are latex free, as I'm not used to use Liquitex and school due to allergies? I have no idea. I unfortunately cannot help you with that one. I'm lucky in that I don't have any allergies like that, so it's not something I've ever had to research. I honestly have no idea. I would try a Google search for latex-free acrylics and see if you can find anything there, but I honestly don't know. Wow, all of my questions so far tonight have been, I don't know, I'm helpful, huh? Mua Britt says, any tips for getting used to adding more contrast, I think you mean contrast, to pieces? I tend to always go towards less contrast. Ah, you did mean contrast. Yes. One, take a photo of your work. If you can use your phone and take a photo of it, adjust your color, your contrast with your phone editor or your phone photo editor. And I think sometimes if you can see what it should look like with the contrast hyped up, when you can see a photo of what a difference that will make, I think it makes it easier to go to your work and go, okay, I can definitely make this brighter and make it look like that photo and it'll look good. So that's one thing. And the other is just practice. And I think being aware that you're not going dark or your contrast is not high enough, that's a big deal all on its own. I think so many artists aren't even aware that their contrast is not bright enough. I mean, I've seen amazing artists do wonderful work, but there was no contrast. There was nothing interesting, so it did not keep the viewer's attention. And that can definitely be a problem. On this, some of the white highlights I'm going to come through with my touch-up texture titanium white mixture because you're only going to get so bright on black paper, and I've already got a lot of shading done on this, so I will come back through and brighten some of that up here. But back to your question. Being aware is step one. Knowing that you don't have enough contrast, that's a big deal. But I think if you can take a photo app and just kind of mess around with the contrast of whatever your work is that stage, sometimes that can make it a lot less scary to hype up that contrast. Because it is very scary to go you feel like I'm going to go too bright or too bold, but in reality, it's very boring if you don't do that. So getting yourself used to doing that is a big deal. The fact that you're aware of it is a good thing. That's a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, photo apps I think are really helpful for seeing what it would look like if you hyped up the contrast, and that again makes it less scary. Let's see, scroll too far again. Where did that go? Mara Black says, I love how you managed to get all your canvases put away. That's a wow. Yeah, I was impressed with myself. That took a while. I was kind of shocked they all fit in those. The best part is nothing had to be removed from the shelves. If you guys saw last week, I showed there were canvases everywhere. There were a lot. Or even at the end of this week's video, you could see a photo of them. I had so many of them to fit there, and I was able to do some creative organizing and made everything fit. I didn't have to move anything out of that space. I was afraid I was going to be like in my husband's closet trying to hide stuff behind his clothes so he wouldn't notice, just so that I could store it because I'm out of room in here. So I didn't need to, though. That was good. Brianna says, do you have any advice for finding time to make art? Between housework and kids, I love to draw and would love to practice more, but it's hard to find time. My my kids are 3 and 7 months. No, I have no advice for you there. Good luck sleeping, I think would be my biggest bit of advice. You have your hands full. I don't know. I mean, do you have a downtime where the kids are finally in bed? That may be a good time if you can maybe, I don't know. It's hard for me to give advice on that because I don't know how you moms manage it. Or parents in general, anyone with kids, moms, dads, that's a lot of work. So it's hard for me to sit and be like super judgy on you should do this, you should do that. I can't imagine how much your work you have. But if you ever have downtime where you find yourself in the evening sitting down to watch TV, maybe switch that out for artwork instead. Or draw. I mean, if you work in colored pencil, that's really easy to do in front of the TV. So you can kind of multitask as far as that goes. But whatever, I hope you have some downtime in your life. And if you do, that would be the time that I would try to fill that with art instead. So if there's something that you're doing that is not as important to you, I mean, basically something has to be given up. So if you are somebody who watches a lot of TV, that may be the thing that you need to give up in order to make time for art. Unfortunately, there's no way to add extra hours to the day. So in general, we have to give something up and you just have to figure out where your priorities are. There were many, many years where I would rather sit in front of the TV and watch House Hunters or different, gosh, I love home decorating shows. Hoarders, oh my gosh, love that. I would sit and watch that forever instead of painting or drawing because I'm a crazy person. But, you know, I had to figure out what I could give up in order to get more artwork done. And at this point for me, most of my time, I mean, I have a really good friend of mine, Jessica, keeps messaging me, asking me for a night to go hang out. And I just haven't had time. And I hate that. But, you know, it's my job and I have to get this stuff done. So, yeah, I think you have to figure out what is going on in your life that you may be able to adjust or not, is not quite a priority. But I can't tell you what those things would be. That's something that you have to figure out on your own, what you can move back, which isn't as important as you may have thought it was. I mean, and especially when the kids are awake, I say this, but I know it's not that easy. I mean, it would probably be easier to clean when the kids are awake than do artwork when the kids are awake. So that may be something to try to do it, move times around and do that. But one thing I can tell you though, if you can set up a Google Calendar, or I like Google Calendar, it just works well for me. But I will set a time schedule frame. Everything is scheduled on the Google Calendar. That may help you. Coming up with some sort of schedule that you can semi-stick to. I know with kids that doesn't always work, but that may be a help. If you know you have certain downtimes where the kids are asleep, maybe work around that way. Phyllis says, I just got Egyptian papyrus paper from Dick Blick. It looked so interesting and I had to have it. Have you ever worked with it? Fairly rough, so I don't think colored pencil work. No, I've not heard of it or used it. Noah says, how detailed of an original outline drawing do you need for colored pencil and acrylics? When I do acrylics, I paint over it on accident and have to redraw it. What do you do? Okay, for colored pencil, if you actually, oh no, you wouldn't be able to see it now. Well, if you go to Facebook or Instagram, what I posted today of the owl, you can kind of still see my white outlines. Those are what I add. It's up to you how much of that outline you need. Somebody's dog is barking like crazy out there. That is a yappy little thing. It sounds like it's trying to kill somebody, but it's a small dog, so it kind of sounds more like a little demon. I don't know. Anyway, I'm totally sidetracked there. But I think the more you paint and draw, you're going to figure out what you need as an initial outline. For me, for the most part with this guy, I kind of generally sketched in where the big blocks of feathers were, but I'm just kind of making a lot of these up. I don't need this to all be exact to the reference photo. They're feathers, they look like feathers. If one of these is over here instead of here, no one is going to know the difference. With acrylic paintings, back to the colored pencil. Let's stay focused on that one for a second. I will usually make sure that my outline, so around the I want to call them ears, I know they're not ears, the feather tufts here, around the side of the face, the eyes, the beak, and then I will get the general direction of which way the fur or feathers, depending on what I'm painting or drawing, are going. Like here, this is not all completely drawn out in detail. I'm going to do that. It's easier for me to do most of that just as I work. I draw some of it, but it's not all perfect. Like these little feathers coming through his eye. That isn't something I need to draw out. That's something that I'm going to kind of freehand in later. That's too detailed. Now for acrylics, I strongly recommend using tracing and transfer paper. Draw, and even if you don't want to trace, this is still what I would recommend doing. Draw your initial drawing on another piece of paper that is the same size as your canvas. Get it drawn out perfectly. Use your tracing paper. Trace over that. You now have a roadmap that you can continuously hold up to your work. So when you have to redraw things because you painted over it, which is how that works with acrylic, that's normal. I don't know if I just had a video go up on this or if it's one I just edited. It may be coming very, very shortly, but I talk about using that. I think it's one I just edited. So you will have an example of this soon, but I use the tracing and transfer paper. I can transfer that image back on top of it, so I'm not continuously redrawing it. I only had to draw it the one time. I drew it, I traced it. Now I've got that tracing paper as a nonstop roadmap to hold over and see if I've lost some of those lines, but that makes it way easier. Shane said, I was wondering where you got prints of your artwork made. Thank you so much for, you do fabulous work. Thank you. And hashtag loving Lachri fine art. That's awesome. I got most of my prints I have done through Fine Art America. That's where they can be purchased. I also use Vistaprint for the postcards. So if you're on Patreon and getting postcards, they were printed at Vistaprint. But I don't like that for posters and such. The work is crap for any posters I've tried to have done through Vistaprint. I only like them for business cards and postcards and that sort of thing. They look great, but anything larger, not so much. Let's see. Mazzino says, hi Lisa, I found that drawing 5 hours a day, which is hard as a student, it still takes me several days to complete a simple 8x10 piece. I worry at this speed of progress will be slow. Well, no. Okay, a couple of things. One, you're going to get faster with time anyway. It is normal to be much slower when you first start because you're experimenting. You're trying to figure out, okay, what happens when I make a line like this? What if I change this? You're constantly, just testing things. But you will get faster the more you're painting and drawing. And as far as that time frame, no, that's actually several days, 5 hours a day for an 8x10. If you're working in a pencil, that tip is tiny. That's a large piece. This isn't quite an 8x10 close in this area here, but that's a tiny tip of a pencil that you're covering a very large surface area with. It is a slow medium pencil. Graphite's a little faster, but still graphite to layer properly, to really take your time, or colored pencil, they are not fast mediums. So no, I don't think that's, doesn't sound like that you're abnormally slow at all. Oops. Scrolling down, I just missed this. Oh, I apparently scrolled way too far. Oh my gosh, where was that? Still scrolling. Wow, okay, here we go. Elise says, have you ever tried to do a colored pencil piece without using paint thinner and powder blender? It would be a nice challenge. It will be a challenge I won't repeat because that's how I started with colored pencil. And for me, I have arthritis in my right hand. It's my hand and my wrist. I have ankylosing spondylitis. So that I've had arthritis for a very long time, and the pain in my hand, I can't burn it. Basically, without powder blender or paint thinner, I end up burnishing more than I normally would, and it's too hard on my hand and wrist. So no, I won't work without it, and I physically can't because it causes too much pain. But that is how, for years and years, that's how I worked. And honestly, I didn't like the results I got that much. I much prefer the results I get here. Now, that said, this piece here, I've not had to use paint thinner nearly as much as I do on other pieces. When working on this paper, I have found, because I'm intentionally letting a lot of that black show through, it's not as big of a deal to blend stuff out. There's certain areas that I did that you'll see next week, but on the Wednesday video, but it's not as critical on this. And so here, I think if you're trying to work without the paint thinner, because that is a question I get from a lot of people who are concerned about toxicity and such, you may want to try this. This is a Canson Mi-Teintes, and this is the black one, and I'm using the smooth side. It's technically, I think, a pastel paper. I'm using the smooth side, and it is wonderful. And very, very forgiving. I can really build up the feathers. And I think too, if you're trying to work on creating fur and feathers, this is a really good paper, if nothing else, just to practice on, because you can easily see just a few pencil strokes and you can see the cluster of feathers. So even if you're not going for super smooth, it's great for practicing. The pencil sticks to it really nicely. I am kind of in love with this paper right now, especially after this project. It moves so much faster than when I work on other paper. And I still like the Fabriano Artistico, but this is kind of a nice, it's just a change in how I work, and I don't need that paint thinner quite as much. Noah wants to know where the infamous Murloc painting is. It's been a while. I know I haven't gotten to it yet. Victoria says, it says in the description, blue and gold macaw. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I copy and paste, and this happens a lot. You guys catch it all the time. Thank God, because you guys are the ones who tell me that it needs to be fixed. But I use a template for my videos, and so, like, if I have a colored pencil one I'm working on, it has a certain template. I just copy and paste it. Sometimes I don't catch all the things I need to go back and change. So that's what happened there. Create says, what would be your top advice for new YouTube artists? Oh gosh, let's see. Consistency. Get yourself on a schedule. Make sure you are uploading on a very regular basis, at least once a week. Now, YouTube so much has been changing on YouTube. There's so much drama. Creators are not making as much as they used to. I know I've dropped any given day. I'm 10 to 25-ish% less than I used to be. A lot of people, because advertisers have been pulling because of the drama with Wall Street Journal. Mainstream media is not a huge fan of losing. So they think that apparently if they get people off YouTube, because a lot of people go to YouTube for different news things, they can get their crowd source back, because their general age that like read New York Times, Wall Street Journal, their average age is like over 60 something. And I mean, it's a very limited group. They're not hitting everybody. In the past, it used to be everybody, every age group read those. But now the younger generations are getting their media on YouTube and different online sources. And a lot of the mainstream media now are kind of have come under and attacked. It's a long story that I don't want to bore you guys with too much, but in short, let's see if I can shorten that. I'm really bad. I'm going to say give something in short, and it ends up taking me 25 minutes. But they have come out and went to advertisers like AT&T or Verizon, a lot of different companies. They went to and said, hey, look, your video is being played on a hate speech video or on something that really probably shouldn't be on YouTube in the first place. And the advertisers, because they don't want the bad PR, they were like, oh my gosh, we're going to pull our advertisements from YouTube until they fix this. So YouTube's trying to fix that, but they basically demonetized a lot of people, but a lot of the advertisers are just gone. Like, my videos are safe. Mine are all, there's no swearing, there's nothing controversial other than some people like Prismacolor and I don't. There's nothing really bad with mine, but the advertisers aren't here, and so people are making less. And YouTube is trying to fix a lot of this, and in the process, they are also constantly changing their algorithms. And one of the things that people are saying now, the best thing you can do, like, you used to be able to get away with doing one video a week and continuously grow, and they're saying now you pretty much have to do something almost every day. So the once a week probably shouldn't be your end goal. You want to get to where you're posting far, far more often than that. I would say twice a week if you can. So maybe a video sharing what your plans are for that week, what your goals are for your art, or maybe doing a quick, like, maybe a Q&A or just a quick live stream of whatever you're currently working on, and then have your weekly video be the full project. I don't know. Those are just some ideas. But you've got to be on a regular schedule. That seems to be what YouTube is favoring now. It's getting harder for a lot of people to grow, because especially right now, there's just so much up in the air where people don't know what's going on and what's going to happen with the whole advertiser boycott. So it's mostly bigger channels, and it's channels especially who have anything that might be considered controversial, but it's not just them who are hitting it. I mean, my ad revenue is much, much lower than normal. Luckily, I depend more on Patreon than that, but yeah, that's moral of that story. Lots is changing on YouTube right now, and the big thing they're saying, a lot of people are saying, is that you've got to produce more content than you used to need to in order to stay relevant and to come up on the search engines. So, or not just search engines, but like suggested videos and such. So even so that your own subscribers are seeing your stuff, you've got to post constantly. So that would probably be my biggest tip, is get yourself onto a schedule. And even if that starts out being once a week, stick to that for a while and then slowly add maybe a second video. Go a few months, see if a third video might be a possibility. But getting on a schedule is a really, really big thing right now. The other thing is, don't do it expecting to get rich on YouTube. Obviously, I mean, you're seeing people who used to make good money on YouTube ad revenue, and they're not anymore. You want to make sure you've got a plan, whatever your long-term solution is. So is your plan to get people back to your website so they buy your artwork? That's a decent business model. Is your business model plan to get people to, if you're going to teach, like how I do, teaching lessons, get people over on Patreon to sign up for getting longer lessons or whatever your rewards are going to be there, then that's an option. I think having a good business plan, don't plan on just making money straight from the YouTube videos. That won't be enough. And it's not something you want to depend on. Like we're seeing right now with the ad boycotts, people are losing income from that like crazy. And again, you know, art videos, we're not hit as hard, but it does affect everybody. So while mine are only, you know, averaging about 10% lower than normal, it's still, for somebody who makes a lot and that's how their whole income comes through, that would be pretty scary. For me, it's not that much. So it's, I mean, I don't make that much on YouTube video AdSense, so it's not as scary. But anyway. So Andrew says, sorry for the confusion. I will reword my question. Do you have to use the matte spray before placing liquid gloss varnish over an airbrush mix with traditional painting? Okay, that makes way more sense. I would always recommend using that matte spray because every single time that I don't, I smudge something when I go on top with that gloss varnish. I'm not sure why that is, but every time I've used the airbrush, it may be how much paint, maybe certain areas I thin down a little too much. Once the varnish is on it, it's fine. It's not like it's causing permanent damage or anything by having thinned it out too much. But it is making it so it smudges. But then there have been other times where I painted almost straight paint, no airbrush, and still had the gloss varnish smudge. So no matter what, I recommend use some sort of a matte finish just to seal it first. That, yes, your question makes much more sense that time. Moise wants to know, how is my shoulder chicken? He is adorable. He is so much cuter than you guys have ever seen. His new thing, I usually I call them my old lady naps. I have to take a nap every day just to make it through so I can work that night. So when I take my nap, sometimes if my husband is home, when I'm waking up, he'll bring the chicken out to me and place him, I sleep on the futon on the couch. And he'll set him on the couch with me and the chicken will get right up in my face. If you guys are unfamiliar, my chicken is actually a cockatiel. He gets right up in my face and sings and says hello. He'll sit there going, hello, hello. And what is this other one? Hi, chicken, chicken. He says that constantly, but he gets like as close to where I can't even focus on him. His face is right up in my eye and just talks and talks. He's all stretched out, just talks and talks. Something about if I'm laying down, he gets so excited. And I've recently found this out. Like I'll go in where his cage is normally in my husband's room. My husband, I'll have him in there when he's, is almost always holding him when he's playing video games or watching sports things. I don't know. I'm not in sports, whatever sports things he's watching. And the chicken, as soon as he sees me laying down, he instantly wants to get over to wherever I'm laying. It's the cutest thing. And just the way he stretches out and talks to me and then whistles his Game of Thrones and Addams Family. It's so adorable. Cutest bird ever. Orion Fine Art says, yet another question about pigment markers. I bought many, expect another 50. I bought many and some leak. Bubbles from at the base of the tip and the ink drips. Any way to fix that? I would honestly contact Winsor & Newton, let them know, and ask them to replace those because that shouldn't be happening. Anytime, and you guys, when you get a supply, like I have read recently where people were unhappy with certain colors of, I think the brown, I know the Castle Earth from Luminance, it tends to be scratchier, like the pigment in there is bigger and whatever. They claim that they were going to fix it or that they had fixed it. When I talked to Karen Dosh about it, if you get a pencil that is not working like the rest of the pencils, so you know it's a defect because the rest of the pencils don't have that problem, contact the company and have them replace it. If they won't, if they're not going to be upfront, because some people said Karen Dosh never got back to them, if that's the case and the company is not getting back to you, return it where you bought it. Did you buy it at Dick Blick? Contact them and say this pencil is defective and demand it be returned. That's what's going to encourage a company to improve their products. If no one complains, I mean, like Prismacolor, how many people don't return the broken pencils? They just deal with it. They go buy another one, whatever, don't want to mess with it because nobody's complaining or not enough people complain. They're not going to have a reason. There's no financial incentive for them to really make a difference. And I think that that's going to be the case no matter what art supplies you buy. If you buy a pack of paint and it's leaking, the tube is broken, the cap of the tube, let's say the cap of the tube doesn't set the way it's supposed to, return it. That will make a bigger difference. Now, I first would contact the company because I know when I used to work at Michael's, they didn't always contact the company if it was just a little return. They would just throw the product out, return the item, and throw it out. So let's say it was Prismacolor. They may not ever know it was returned. But contact the company itself first that produces it. If they won't help you, return it to the store you bought it from. Don't deal with defective products. So let's say in the case of Winsor & Newton here, if that's what's happening with those are defective and those need to be replaced, and Winsor & Newton needs to correct the problem so that that doesn't keep happening. So I would definitely don't keep stuff that is not working as intended. I mean, having a hard time blending, that's user error. That's going to be you learning how to use it. Things leaking where they shouldn't be leaking, that's a defective product that I would return. Travis says, what do you wrap your finished canvases in? When I'm storing them or when I'm transporting them from one location to another, all of mine are inside of their felt bags that basically keep I make them. They're just big pieces. I get these huge bolts of fabric, felt from, these ones are all from Hobby Lobby. Their fabric is fairly inexpensive. You can get them, like Joann's has fabric. I think Michael still does. I get a ton of it, and I make basically big pillowcases and slide them into that. And the reason that I use felt is it's somewhat soft, so it seems to protect them from scratches really well. And that's what all the teal behind me is that you're seeing. Can I recommend a good pencil sharpener? My small handheld ones wear out far too quickly. I use them with Polychromos, Prismacolor, and a couple of cheapo brands. No matter what you use, it's going to wear out fairly quickly. That's usually not as much about the sharpener. Now, you can make your pencil sharpeners last longer by regularly sharpening your graphite pencils, even if it's a throwaway graphite pencil. Sharpen your graphite pencil in the sharpener, and that is going to help that blade to stay clean and sharp much, much longer. It lubricates it. So that is, because that's what graphite is it's a lubricant. So use that. That will help your sharpeners to last a lot longer. The other thing that you can do is get sharpeners that you can get replaceable blades for. Coom does that, and I actually just bought a bunch of them on Amazon, replacement blades. I just need to change all of those out now. I'm lazy and have not done so yet, but you can get sharpeners that have a replaceable blade. The Coom sharpeners are great, but I mean, any sharpener I use, after so long, it does start to wear out. The blades, they're going to wear out. I mean, you're basically chopping wood on a razor blade. So I think you can kind of understand why that wears out. But the graphite pencil, sharpening that in their in-between colors occasionally, you know, I don't know, every hour, sharpen that you've been using it, sharpen some graphite pencil. I'm just throwing a number out there. There's no science behind that suggestion. But I mean, sharpen your graphite pencils in there. That'll definitely help them to last longer. Victoria Diaz Art says, that was hard for me to say for some reason. Let's try that again. Victoria Diaz, no, I still can't do it. Victoria Diaz Art says, I met an artist. She has a degree in art and wants to work with me. I don't know what to expect. I've always been alone and self-taught. How do artists work together? I'm so lost. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know the actual situation, but I'm curious as to whether or not she actually has that degree in art. How do you know this artist? Because I'm contacted regularly by artists from all over the world who want to work for me. I don't know what they think they're going to do. I mean, and I don't mean just since I've started talking about hiring an assistant. I mean from 20 years ago when I started, when I had, having a website, maybe not then, we'll say 15 years ago, I'd have people contact me, usually from other countries, asking to work for me. And I'm like, they'd explain that they're an artist, what their qualifications were. That's the word. What their qualifications were, and want a job working for me. And it's like, that's not really how this works. I'm curious what she thinks. I mean, is it a friend? Is it somebody you know? And I'm not sure how you're going to work together. I mean, unless you're hiring her to edit videos, to work on your social media, to do that, I don't really see what hiring another artist would do for you. Don Hill says, where do you buy your paper and canvases for the most part? For canvases, now recently I got all these most of these came from Frederick's. But when I do buy them myself, I get them more often than not from Easel Art Supply. If you're in North Texas, love them. It's AESEL? A-E-S-A. I can't spell. I don't know why you're asking me. Easel Art Supply, there's one in, I don't know, there's a few in North Texas. Awesome place. They have their Frederick's canvases are always 50% off. So that is where I typically will get my canvases. Occasionally from Dick Blick. I've gotten some on Amazon. If you have certain canvas, I like to put Amazon items in my cart, or not in my cart, but in my wish list and watch when the price drops. Because sometimes you will get amazing, amazing deals. I mean, I have a couple of canvases here that are red label, which I don't typically use, but I paid so little from them on Amazon that I'll just put a coat of gesso on them, sand them down, and now they'll be like the blue label that I like better. So that is a really good place. Watch sales on Amazon for sure, because you can get some great deals that way. But yeah, those are my main two for canvas. For paper, Dick Blick and Jerry's Artorama are my normal go-to places, because the places local, they don't have the paper that I really like. So the majority of what I use comes from either Dick Blick or Jerry's. Vladimir says, oh, I was reading that and it scrolled. Why do you do that? This is not you, Vladimir, but the silly chat window. Now, I don't know how long. We may be waiting here a while I scroll back up to try to find that question. Oh, come on. Nope. Nope. I apologize for this wait. So there we go. There's my question. Vladimir says, could you try highlighting whichever question you last answered for your existentially challenging scrolling problem? I have no idea. That is hilarious. You asked that right when I had that problem. You know, I don't know. It's when I scroll up, the page just jumps all the way to the bottom. It wants to constantly jump to the newest instead of where I currently am, because I keep it scrolled where I currently am. So I don't know how to fix this. I did this. I thought maybe it was because of the touch screen on the laptop, but when I had the chat, we did the colored pencil live stream recently, I had the same problem even with using my mouse. The chat wants to automatically jump down to the bottom, unfortunately. Kelly Payne says, had the worst day until now, finally relaxing. Hope you're feeling better. Thank you. I hope you feel better too. Victoria Diaz Art, hey, look, it was easier for me to say that time, says, how do you have the energy to be productive? I'm a mom and trying to be a professional artist, but I'm so tired all the time. I sleep 9 hours a day. I draw paint at nights. Lately I've been drinking coffee, which is a fairly newer thing for me. Normally it's been green tea, and I'm finding the coffee to be more effective. I just have to be careful because I'm not really supposed to have caffeine, hyperthyroid, adrenal gland issues, and all of that. So I've been doing that lately. I have to take a nap during the days. I can't work at night if I don't take a nap. And I know having the kids, that's not going to probably be too practical for you unless you can get them to nap too, which good luck with that. For me, that nap is an absolute must. And I mean, it helps that I'm doing something that I love, of course, that I think if I had to get up, like if I was just editing video every night, I couldn't do this. I couldn't put in this many hours if it was nonstop editing. I like making videos, but it's not super exciting for me. So it gets to the point where it's just like, I cannot edit one more video today. So that, you know, it's something that I enjoy, and I would probably be doing anyway. I mean, when I was younger and I didn't feel well all the time, normally that's what I would do, is paint and draw. And that's how I got to where I was good at painting and drawing, or more drawing than painting at the time. But it was because I didn't feel well, or I was tired and didn't have the energy for anything else. So that's one good thing. You don't have to have tons of energy for the art part. You can use it as a way to relax. But yeah, I'm thinking caffeine is probably the answer, how I would answer that question. Yeah, it's funny. You say sleeping 9 hours a day. I'm not quite that. I feel best if I can, but because of my back, I no longer can stay asleep very long. So that nap definitely helps, but I'll end up sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and then I'll take a nap that's 1 to 2 hours long a day. So my sleep is broken up, but yeah, that is definitely a requirement. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest giving any of that up. Raiden says, media sources honestly need to get into YouTube and get with the times. You were absolutely right. I mean, I was watching reports where some media, or someone who used to work in some mainstream media, said the same thing. He's like, I used to put videos up when I worked for this company, and they would get mad at me. That station did not want the stuff on YouTube. And then they realized, wow, if it's not on YouTube, nobody pays attention to it. And so they started using it more. But no, you're right. That's a huge problem, as companies who don't transform. I mean, I had a friend who used to work years and years ago. She worked for the post office. And one of the problems they had back in the 90s, the late 90s, when eBay started getting big and people were buying stuff constantly online. This is when it was just getting big, where people were buying things, late 90s, early 2000s. This was a chance that the USPS had the opportunity to go, hey, we can make money shipping these packages. This is something we can work towards and kind of build the business that way. But they said, and this was an honest thing with them, they were like, no, we don't want part of this. They started redirecting people to UPS, to FedEx, to all of these other companies, and they lost so much money. And then they were complaining, well, we've got to raise our rates because no one sends letters anymore. Everything's done online. The more that got, and it's like, wait, you had the opportunity years ago to jump in on packages. That's what people are going to use the post office and use that for. And they didn't want any part of it. And they jumped in later, but I mean, they lost a lot because they weren't keeping up with the times. And that is really what mainstream media is doing now too. They're not keeping up with the times. They're trying to force it to be what it always was. And that just doesn't work. And I think it's a good lesson for artists too. No matter what we do, we've got to be ready to adapt. I mean, with me, YouTube could be gone in 5 minutes. You don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. But luckily, I've got my email list so I can keep in touch with people. I have the other social media platforms. I've got my own website where people know how to get a hold of me. I've got Patreon, which is where the majority of my income is coming from. But if that felt, there are other, I've got backup plans. So hopefully that wouldn't be, I'm hoping that doesn't happen with YouTube. I actually really like the platform for the most part. I don't love the changes they're making lately. And then, of course, the ad revenue thing. It's a bit of an issue, but, I say a bit of it. It's a big issue for a lot of people. It's a smaller issue for me personally. But in the long run, I think that that's going to have a chain reaction just because of, like you said, mainstream media needs to, in every company, people need to learn to adapt, and mainstream media is not wanting to. Paul says, tips on doing feathers to get them realistic. First, keep your pencil super sharp. I don't know if you see me, like even right now, this pencil, not sharp enough. I need to sharpen that. This, let's see if I've got one that's sharper. This one's even starting to get dull. Those pencils, you want them to be very, very sharp because that's a lot of fine, tiny detail that you want to get into. And work slow. Work on one little area at a time. Don't try to do everything all at once. Meaning, I'm not going to go, okay, I'm using this color, so I'm going to use it on the entire owl all at the beginning. Right now, I'm jumping around more, but when I start off, you work on one little section at a time and then move on to the next section. It's going to make it much easier for you to continue to kind of manage it. It makes it less overwhelming. But one feather at a time. Don't look at the feathers as a whole. Orion Fine Art says, how do I blend two colors with pigment markers without using fingers or brushes? I've tried it. I can't. You're saying you are getting these nearly black spots, which I don't know what you're talking about with the black spots. I've not seen that. But as far as having trouble or trying to blend, I have not really gotten to where I was super comfortable or super good blending just with the markers themselves. I always use brushes or my fingers unless it's a super tiny area. That doesn't mean that there's not a way to do it. It's just going to take some practice. Mazzino says, have you considered doing a TED Talk? It seems like it would be a great exposure, especially with your insight over the years. If you have time, that is. Yeah, that's the key, is the time. I'm asked regularly to do different things. Not that, but I've been asked by different companies to come and host things that I really would love to be a part of. And it's like, when am I going to have time for that? I don't have time for the amount of work that I currently have. I'm not sure why I think that I have time to fit something else. So there have been a lot of things that I wanted to commit to, I wanted to be involved in, and it's like I had to pull back and go, I just don't have the time. Whether it be a company wanting me to promote a product or, it can be anything. I'm having to stop doing a lot of different projects just because I don't have time. Now, I'm hoping that will change if I have an assistant that, eventually when I have an assistant, that will definitely make it easier for me to put more time into other more creative sources when I'm not having to do all the video editing. But yeah, that's to come. Johanna says, I just read that you can only blend 3 times with odorless mineral spirits with colored pencil. Is that true? No, it is definitely not true. I'm not sure where you read that, but that is the biggest bunch of misunderstanding or misinformation I've heard, well, at least all day. Let's see. Critty says, are you on Instagram? I am, and that link should be in the video description. Scrolling to, hopefully not scrolling too far. Yolanda says, I have a shoulder chicken also, and as a matter of fact, he's sitting on my head while watching you. Every once in a while, he tries to pluck my eyebrow. Green Sheet Connier. Those guys are so cute. JPC13 Art wants to know if the Shoulder Chicken has learned the Harry Potter song yet. I haven't really tried, since he's learned to talk and started really singing, I haven't tried him on that one. He definitely likes songs where it goes a lot faster, like the beginning of Game of Thrones and the beginning of Addams Family. He doesn't learn the slow, longer, like the whole notes. He's just not even trying. He likes the really fast notes. He ignores everything else. So I don't know how well that'll work. Okay, Mara Black says, do you use sandpaper to sharpen your pencils to keep a sharp point and not have to use a sharpener to save your pencils? Somewhat. I do, and I haven't been lately. Here, I'm wanting a finer point than even that, but so I just keep using the sharpener and probably being way too wasteful. But yeah, I often do use sandpaper for that. And of course, scroll too far, because that's what I do. Okay, so trying to get back to where I was in the questions. This is so frustrating. I wish it would just stay. I waste so much time in these videos scrolling through because of this problem with their chat. Clarice wants to know what paper I'm using. It's Canson Mi-Teintes. This is their black paper. It's a pastel paper. I'm using the smooth side. If you guys have not already, and I want to thank too our moderators, Valerie, who has a wood burning channel. Check out her channel. I have a link in the video description. And the Art of Joseph Fincham has some really cool paintings. I've also got a link to his channel in the video description. But check out their channel as a thank you for helping me out, because I could not do these videos without them. Mara wants to know what I used for the highlight on the eye. It has that look of Liquitex matte mixing white. It does. You're right. Actually, what I did is I filled in the whole eye with black. Then I went on top of it with a dark, like indigo blue. And then I took a white. Actually, it wasn't even white. It was my cream color. Is this actually cream? Ivory. My polychromos ivory, and went over that, and it just lightened the blue that was already there. But it's a translucent pencil, being the polychromos and the oil base. So that's how I did that. Victoria Diaz Art says, I guess what I was asking before was, how do artists work together and be profitable? I honestly don't know. It's not something I've really done. Now, on the flip side, hold on, I need tea. Oh, I put more honey in that than usual. I usually try to do just a little bit. I think I got a little too much that time. I measure it, so I don't know how I got too much. Anyway, when working together, I don't know. The only thing that I could see is, and I'm not saying there aren't other options, but the only thing I'm really seeing as being something that would be super beneficial for artists working together would be if one of them is full on commissions, they may refer you to do commissions for, give a reference to you instead, so you've got a bit of a collaboration there. Or if you don't do the type of commission someone wants, maybe they do, you can work back and forth that way. You could do, if you're making videos and such, like Jason Morgan and I, or some other artists where we've done collaborations where you're kind of helping each other out by letting your audience know about them, they let their audience know about you, and that's a way artists work together. But I don't see how two artists working together, if you're a fine artist and you're just doing it to try to sell your artwork, I'm really not sure, unless you kind of went in, where you're paying halves if you decided to open a gallery and you're both not, you're both pitching in for the costs of running the gallery. I don't see any benefit. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm saying I don't see it. I'm not sure what the point of two artists working together, unless it's a business venture where you're opening a gallery together. I'm not sure what is supposed to happen there. And I know what a lot of artists will do is that they will contact an artist who they think is more successful than them, and they kind of want to ride on their coattails. Is that how that phrase goes? Their jacket, right on their, I think it's coattails, but they want to kind of ride that wave, ride the artist's success, thinking they're going to help them to be successful because they're successful. That's generally what I've seen, where people see my website, they like how it looks, they assume I'm making way more money than I am, and I must want to hire them to be an artist painting for me. And again, this is before YouTube. That was something that I was dealing with more than now. It's a little bit different because I will eventually hire an assistant. But back then it was like, wait, what? I don't understand why. I am an artist. If I need something painted, I'm going to paint it. I don't know what I would need you for, or how. I've had a lot of people who wanted to sell their artwork on my website. That was one that I got a lot. I just don't see what the benefit is of two artists otherwise working together. I'm just not sure. I'm thinking, I don't want to say scam, but probably not what you think that person, yeah. I'm going to go with, I don't necessarily recommend it. Vladimir says, have you used the Faber-Castell 9000 series? And if you have, would you recommend them? I have, and they are one of my top absolute favorite pencils. I have a video of a tiger that I drew, was it last year? Year before? I don't know. If you look up tiger graphite or a Faber-Castell 9000 series with the word Lachri in it, do a search for that. That video will come up, and I love them for so many reasons. They blend so well. I hardly had to use my shading tools at all. Like oh, those pencils are wonderful. Those ones and the new Derwent Graphic, not the old ones, but the new ones. So you need to make sure you get the new tins. Those I really like too. Those are my top two pencils. And right behind them, I would say, are the Caran d'Ache Graphwood. And mostly my favorite thing about them are the pencils are color coded. But as far as the consistency of the pencils, I prefer the 9000 series, and even I think the Derwent Drawing to those. Meg Liz says, just started experimenting with oil paint. What's safe way to dispose of leftover medium, dried paint scrapings, rags, and stuff? Contact your local city. They are going to tell you how they want that stuff disposed of. And a lot of them will have a location where you can just, bring it in a bag and drop it off with them. Your paint thinner, all of that, any leftover, anything like that, just contact your city and see where they want you to dispose of that. I can't tell you because every city is going to be a little bit different. Savino says, is Prismacolor Scholar the same thing as Prismacolor pencils, or is there a difference in how light fast Prismacolor pencils? The Prismacolor Premier are not the same as Prismacolor Scholar. Prismacolor Scholar are pretty terrible. They don't seem to break as much. The lead's not as, it doesn't blend as well. I do not like those at all. That is not a pencil I would personally ever use. I mean, at least with the Prismacolor, while I don't love Prismacolor Prismacolor Premier, they blend really well. So I understand why a lot of people still prefer them. They are so blendable, and the Scholars are hard as a freaking rock, and they don't blend and layer quite the same. I don't like them at all. And there went the scrolling. I was so going slow to make sure that did not happen. Valerie said, my social media links aren't in the description yet. Man, I screwed that up. I put this link together when I wasn't feeling well for today's thing. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm probably missing lots of things I plan to have in the description. I will have to fix that. If you go, my social media links are on all my other videos though. So if you look at one of my other ones, it will be there. Okay, Eric Draws wants to see a video showing you my earliest drawings. Actually, I have one coming up soon. It's going to be on one of the Q&As, and somebody was asking for tips on, excuse me, on acrylic painting. And so I'm really talking in that video about things that I learned looking back at some of my older stuff, and I'm going to show you at least one of the, I think two, maybe there's two of my really old paintings when I first started, and talk about what didn't go right, what needs to be changed. And on some of those older paintings, I looked them up. I had to actually look them back up. If you guys know about the Wayback Machine, like an old search engine to look up old websites or cached things, I had to look them up there because I don't even have copies of some of these old paintings, and they were terrible. But I'm tempted to redo them. But yeah, you will see some of those coming up soon, because it was easier for me to talk about what I would do different if I could show you what was going wrong in the first place. So I forget what day that comes up. It's sometime the next couple of weeks. Joe says, impressed with how the polychromos are showing up on this piece despite their translucence on the black. Is this just due to the pressure? How many layers are already down? I want to say I've probably got, I'd say 5 to 10 layers down on most of this. I'm impressed with how they're showing up too. Now, they don't show up as well as the luminance, but they're still showing up a fairly decent amount. Now, part of it too, they look brighter than they are. If I put, let's see. When I put something that's actually white, you can see that's almost a dark gray versus white. It's not as bright as it seems. It seems like it's bright, just the contrast with the black. It's not going to be, whoops, wrong side, totally white. So that's where I'm going to come back through with my touch-up texture titanium white to really get some of these brights to pop more. So, but yeah, no, they're showing up better than I would have thought them to. But the base of most of this was done first with luminance, which are more opaque. Once that was done, now I'm going on top with the polychromos, which I can get that finer point on. So when I go through, let me see if you can see this. This area here doesn't, yeah, that should show. This area at the bottom corner, this is just paper. There's no black there. And when I go over that with this color, you can see it kind of shows up. It's very dark. It's not super bright. If I do that same one with a similar color with polychromos, this is going to be much, much brighter. So, or not with polychromos, with the luminance. The luminance are definitely more opaque and show up better, but for some areas where I'm almost just tinting color glazing things, or in this case, I'm just taking black and going on top of those, that's obviously going to show up really well. But yeah, it's one of those where I would have thought that I would only want to use luminance, or let's say Prismacolor if you have those, on black paper, but I'm really liking it if I do the luminance first, the opaque pencils first, and then put the polychromos on top of that for finer detail. I'm finding that works really well. The Wizard X says, how do you tape your paper down? I always tape the paper unevenly on all sides, so when I trim it, the dimensions are off. Well, you're going to have to be more careful, I think, is the tip there for getting it even. Mine's probably not exact. It's close, but you could take something and make marks. You know, okay, this is where I want the tape to start and finish. So come down here and make sure my tape start and finish is at the same spot on this end. You can do things like that to try to keep it if you're having a trouble getting it eyeballed on there. But pretty much be more careful. Not the answer you were looking for, is it? Meets Art Gallery says, would you get the same result if you used Prismacolor? Not the same result. I could get something very, very similar. The problem with Prismacolor is they're very waxy, they're very thick. I'm going to have a harder time getting the fine detail that I can very, very easily get with either luminance or the polychromos. So that's going to be the biggest difference there. But the Prismacolor are going to be very opaque, so they're going to show up pretty well against the black paper. Theo Williams wants to know, how often do you varnish your works? Much. I don't know how to answer. Wait, what? How often? It's not like something you have to do once a week. You just varnish them when they need to be, when you finish something. They don't, I haven't ever had to revarnish anything, if that's what you mean. Critty wants to know if I am drawing on an easel. I am. I'm drawing upright. I have arthritis in my back. I used to draw, and I prefer, if I was still able to, I used to draw flat on a table, and that was how I always liked to draw. But because of my back, I can't look down anymore. So, like crochet, I'm never going to be that little old lady, which is kind of sad because I used to like crocheting. I'm not going to be able to like crochet or even sculpture. Anything that's going to require me to look down, that's not something that I will really ever be able to do because of my back and my neck. With art, luckily, I was able to kind of change that around and figure out a way that worked better and didn't cause pain for me. And so what I've got is my easel, and then my artwork is taped to, make sure I got that back where it was, taped to a drawing board, so that I can work upright. And it took a little bit of getting used to. When I first started working this way, I didn't like it at all. I was just so used to working flat, and I definitely preferred it. But I really had no choice because of my back and my neck. So it did take a little bit of getting used to, but I did get used to it. So if you are someone who is having trouble with your back, that can be an option for you. Some people never need it. Like even the drafting tables, those don't work for me because they don't go up. Most of them don't go up to a 90-degree angle. The 90-degree angle ones would, but I need to be completely upright. I can't even remotely be angled down, or I have problems. And I used to use a tabletop easel. What was a drawing board, but it sat up all the way. It was adjustable. This works really nice. This is just an H-frame easel. It's very heavyweight, so I can push as hard as I want, and it's not sliding back. Georgia says, I understand you don't like pastels. Have you tried pan pastels? They work a lot like powder blender, very little dust, and uses the foam brushes. I have, and I still don't like them. I love how they look. Don't like using them. It's just not my thing. That's like my one question that will be asked at least once in every single video. I love it. I should have like a copy paste or a button. I could just hit it and it'll answer that same, like almost word for word. I may have to make that happen. Mostly because I think it would be hilarious. And I scrolled too far, so we're going back up again. Oh my gosh, how much farther does this have to go? Why do you do this to me, YouTube chat? Okay, I think we're almost, I went too far the other direction now. Melissa says, I want to get more Inktense pencils and blocks, but I want to get them with your work on them. Any word on when they're coming out? No, and I need to contact them and ask, and I keep forgetting to. I've not heard yet. I did make another video for them that they were going to be submitting to Michael's. I don't know if they used it or not. kind of a promotional thing for Inktense. It's kind of exciting for me to be asked to do something like that because I really like those pencils. Okay, I'm really trying to scroll very slow. Don't do it, YouTube chat. Mara Black says, are you as comfortable painting and coloring birds in flight, or do you prefer them to be stationary? Either way, your realism is awesome, but in flight seems more complicated. I like it both ways. It just depends on the reference photo. I think the problem is finding good reference. It's hard to take photos of birds in flight, and so there aren't as many available as there are birds who are sitting still. I think it comes down more to that, just having more of these reference photos available to us. But I've done a few in flight. I love it. I love the motion. You also run into a bit of an issue when they're in flight. You're probably going to be doing the whole body, so you're working on a larger piece if you want to get all those tiny details in. Barbara Lovelace says, any recommendations on getting actual critiques on your artwork? I'm tired of hearing that's so good, that's great. Not that those are terrible things to hear. Try posting, like you can try posting in our group, what would you change about this? Like, let people know. I love the compliments, but if you could change something about this, if you were doing this piece, what would you do? I think if you worded it a little bit different, when you ask for those critiques, you may get more honest, you know, where people kind of nitpick it more for you. I would just change the way that you're wording the request for a critique. Say, ask for specifics on what you think, what that artist may want to change. Echo Sierra Charlie says, I struggle with neck pain from posture during drawing and painting. Would you consider showing us how you have your chair and easel and other tools set up around you to prevent pain? There's not really much to show. Honestly, I'm sitting on a stool. It's a cushion stool. I have to have a lot of cushion because of my back. I forget what brand it is. I will be doing sometime in the near future a tech kind of thing showing you all of the equipment that I use, but I'm sitting just straight up, and I found that a stool was better for me. I'm sitting with my legs like Indian style here, so they're not flat on the floor, but I've got to, as long as I keep my spine very straight, or even if I move forward, I've got to keep my my back straight. I can't do this. I can't hunch. I found when I had a back on my chair, I was more likely to slouch than when I worked on just this stool. This is a newer stool, and I love it. My easel just has to be upright. That's really all it is. And I just make sure I stay upright, and then I'm not looking down. Like, I wouldn't want my easel to be dropped down to where I was working down here. I keep it so it's more straight in front of me, if that helps. So scrolling a bit more. I was right at a question and it jumped again. Oh, good. It wasn't too far. Meets Art Gallery says, how much time would it take if you were to do this painting in acrylics? And would you prefer to do this painting in acrylics or oils? I could probably have this whole thing done in a night or two in acrylics. It would be much faster. Technically, I would say about 8 hours. With oils, because of the dry time, the time actually spent painting would be the same in oil. But I would have to let it dry in between layers, so it would end up taking me closer to a week to finish something very similar. Just because I'd let it dry. I'd only have to paint on it. Maybe the first night I'd paint for 2 hours. Every additional night would get less and less just because of the amount of glazing that I'm doing, and then I would then need to let it dry. So I would probably the next night, if I put 2 hours in it in oils the first night, the next night I'd probably put 30 minutes, the next night after that 20 minutes, the next night after that probably 10 minutes. It's just those little things here and there. And then my last night, usually with oils, I'll put a little bit more time because then I'm just doing the final little details on top of what I glazed. When a preference to oils to acrylics, here's the thing. They both should look the same. If you do acrylics properly, the acrylic should look the same as an oil. You shouldn't be able to tell the difference. So for me, just because I like to save time, I would probably go with acrylics. But as far as which it would look better in, it should look the same either way. Kat says, I recently completed a drawing where I used the colored pencil for the blurred background, and I'm not happy with the result. Too crayon-like. Any tip for larger backgrounds? One would be to use powder blender. That is like my favorite right now. If I'm doing a large piece, like you probably will not see me work super, super large if I'm not either using the airbrush to do most of the background like I did with my hummingbirds, because that was about a 16 by 20, or if I'll use the powder blender. Those are just so much easier, it goes so much faster. For the crayon look, what's probably happening is you're pushing too hard too soon, so you're not able to get enough layers where you're getting the pencil into all those little nooks and crannies. What's happening is your pencil is just catching the tooth, the top of the paper. What you want to do is work in a and it's going to be a slow process. You're going to work in a very, very light hand in just teeny tiny little circles or ovals, little circles, and you're going to get more even, smoother coverage that way. That you're going to do that in several layers. That's the other thing. Let's say if you're using the odorless mineral spirits, one of the reasons that people will have trouble getting it to be as smooth as mine is that they're doing, a layer, 2 light layers, and they'll blend with the odorless mineral spirits and expect it to be super smooth. That's not going to happen. When I do backgrounds, big long backgrounds, and I'm doing the blurry back out of focus, and if I'm working with the pencil itself, I'm going to do maybe 3 to 5 layers of the small circles, very light, just going through slowly. And you can see even doing this on this little black area. This is a slow thing to do, the little circles. You want a very sharp pencil so that it's getting into all those nooks and crannies so that you don't have the white of that paper showing through. You're going to do this in maybe 3 to 5 layers, blend with your odorless mineral spirits, let it dry, and repeat that process until it no longer looks gritty and grainy. If it still looks gritty and grainy, you're not done. Now, if you push too hard early on where you're really jamming that pencil in there, you're not going to be able to get as many layers, which means you may be stuck with that grainy, gritty look. Now, the type of paper you're using will also affect this. Fabriano Artistico is one of my favorites. The Stonehenge works pretty well. That it absorbs a lot of the paint thinner, so your first few layers end up looking really weird. You have to wait for it to dry longer with the paint thinner on Stonehenge, but it does work. This paper, I'm intentionally letting a lot of the black show through, so it doesn't look super crayony, even though I'm not putting as much work as I normally would on, say, white paper. But yeah, those are usually the reasons that it's happening. Don't push so hard and work in small little circles. Get more even coverage, get more layers. So like I said, 3 to 5 layers, and then blend with your odorless mineral spirits, let it dry, and repeat that process until it's super smooth. Mara Black says, is there any way to get colored pencil drawing to have a gloss look like oil paintings or a gloss varnish? Acrylics is matte your only option. I don't put a varnish on my colored pencil work, so I really can't say. I do know some artists who will paint on canvas, and I do know of another artist who is talking about making something that will work as a varnish, but right now I don't know what would be the best. I'm really not sure because it's not something I've ever attempted myself, so I unfortunately can't help you much there. Orion Fine Art wants to know how to make the blurred backgrounds with pigment markers. Go and watch my video on the tiger or the recent frog, and you can see how I've layered and worked on those. But it's just a layering process, and I smudge it out with my fingers. And practice. I would recommend start small before you start, something huge trying to blend out. So blending big things is harder with the pigment markers. I also find blend one little area and then blend another area and then smudge the two together. Even once this is dry, you can make them reactivate the other. But it sounds like the main issue you're having right now is practice. Make mistakes, make an ugly mess, and then learn from that. Keep messing with it until you get the hang of it, but rewatch some of those videos where I did the tiger and the frog, well, 2 frogs now, with the pigment markers, and see how I'm blending that. Part of it will be the amount of pressure you're adding with your finger as you smudge that out, and part is just going to be practice. Bigelow Fine Arts says, have you ever heard of people putting clear or tinted resin on top of colored pencil pieces, such as when it's done on drafting film? I'm not sure. It's not something, again, I've not looked into that. I've not looked into putting anything on my pen. With the luminance and the polychromos, I don't need to finish it with anything. There's no wax bloom, so no reason for me to do that. So I'm really not sure. Orion Fine Art, if I missed your question or if I miss anyone else's question, as far as I'm concerned, I'm caught up. So just ask them again, because I'm not going to go through scrolling through all of that. This is being ridiculous. Not you guys, but the chat is being difficult. Barbara, this is a eagle owl. So I'm just coming through with my black pencil and getting these little sections in here, the little specks. And actually, I want to jump ahead a little bit. One of the reasons I actually really like this one, even though I'm further along than I normally would be for a live stream, the end of the videos where I'm doing the final details, these little things you guys don't really get to see because the videos, when they move fast, these things don't make that big of a difference. When you're moving fast, it's just like it looks like I'm moving my hand and nothing's happening. So it's kind of nice for you to be able to see in real time what those final details looks like, where I'm just moving around slowly and getting those little bits. But I do want to do a little bit with the touch-up texture and titanium white mixture, and oh good, I've got my brushes over here. Nope, not powder blender. Wrong one. Okay, so what I'm using, these products you can get from brushandpencil.com. Again, not a sponsored video, but I am friends with Aliona now, so, you know, for transparency, we'll do that. I'm friends with her because of the product, though, because she's helped me with them so much, and then we ended up, turns out, have the same sense of humor. We're almost the same person. So, let's see. The only difference between Aliona and I is I can say focus. And if she's watching this, she's going to give me so much crap for that. Okay, so what I'm using are the colored pencil titanium white. This is the colored pencil touch-up texture. This is in a little nail polish bottle. These are the ones that I tend to go through faster. The other thing is the colored pencil titanium white. It comes in this little jar, and what I'm going to do is add a little bit of the titanium white. And if you're like me and you also have powder blender, make sure you read the label. I can't tell you how many times I've mixed this in with powder blender. It doesn't work. The powder blender is clear. That won't help you. Make sure you're using the right jar because they look very similar. You don't need a lot. There's just a tiny amount in that, and you don't want to mix too much too soon because this dries really quickly. So even if you mix a whole bunch, you know you need a lot of it. If you mix a whole bunch, it's probably going to dry faster than your, oh, I've got it all over my pants now. It's going to dry way faster than you can use it. So just mix a little bit, and you want to make sure you shake this bottle up really well. There's you can see the stuff that settles at the bottom. You want to make sure that it is all mixed up, that you can no longer see that. Milan wants to know if the colored pencils can be used on top of Inktense. Yes, they can. Just don't do Inktense on top of the colored pencil because you don't want to put a water-based product on top of the oil-based. But regular colored pencil on top of Inktense, absolutely. Bigelow Fine Arts said, did you see the final fixative with powder blender? Did you use the final fixative with powder blender, and does it require a lot of layers to get complete coverage? I use a few layers. I let it dry in between. The bottle will tell you what to use. I forget what it is because I don't have it in front of me, but you want to follow the directions on the bottle. But yeah, I do usually do about two or three coats, letting it dry completely in between. So I'm going to take this and just pour a little bit of that in there. It pours fast, so go slow. And I'm going to mix that with a liner brush. This is a synthetic hog-haired script liner brush. This one is a number 2. I think I may need a bit more of my touch-up texture. Well, maybe not now that that's stirring in there. Nope, I don't need more. Okay, put a lid on that. So stirring that really well. Sandy Stardust says, sorry if I asked before, tuned in late. Where did you find the reference photo? This is from wildlifereferencephotos.com. Orion Fine Art says, have you heard that Winsor & Newton are discontinuing the pigment marker line? I'm so sad. I'm not sure. Are they actually discontinuing it, or are they reinventing? I'm curious about details on that. I'd like to hear more because I know it didn't sell well, but honestly, I don't think they marketed it well. I think that they went about that the wrong way because it's the only kind of marker that I really like. So it sucks if if I just have to use up what I have and can't buy more, but I got maybe half of them were given to me and half of them I bought on clearance, so I don't feel like I'm too shorted if that's the case, but yeah, that would suck. Make sure you guys are highlighting, as the moderators keep mentioning. You've got to highlight the name in order for me to see it, otherwise it scrolls past really fast and I don't see that there's a question for me. I just assume it's you guys talking amongst yourselves. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and paint in some, whoops, gotta scroll my reference photo down. I can paint in some of these highlights a lot brighter than what I can get my pencil, and I can get the lines a lot thinner too. And I'm not adding much pressure here. The harder you push with a liner brush, the thicker your line will be. So I just barely want that to touch, And you can see I can start forming these really defined details with the feathers that are much thinner than what my actual pencils could have done. And they stand out a lot more. And once this dries, I can tint the color. So if it's too bright, it's no big deal. I can put pencil right on top of it. It'll stick really, really well. Put some of the lighter areas in between these black feathers here. But see how bright this is? So while, yes, I used a white pencil here, it doesn't really come out super white because you're on black paper. But this, using the Touch Up Texture Titanium White, this will fix that. And I can use this for highlights just here and there, and it makes such a difference. This product has definitely turned into one of my absolute must-haves for colored pencil. Even if powder blender isn't really your thing, you don't want to blend that well, this is like, I mean, fine details, little whiskers, little hairs inside the ears when you're painting and drawing like a wolf or a dog, cats, anything like that. This is on my absolute must-have list. And I sound like a freaking salesman, and I apologize for that. But, you know, I get excited about things. When I used to have a cat, you should have heard me, and I still laugh. It's one of those things that I'm always going to remember because I realized when I was talking about it, I was buying a certain kind of cat litter, and this lady asked me about it, and I got super excited telling her about it. I was like, wow, I sound like a freaking salesperson. Anytime there's something I like, I turn into a salesperson. Or at least I come across that way. But to be fair, if I don't like something, I'll tell people that too. Chris Satch asks about my opinion of Lucas oil paints. I've not used them, so I can't really give much input there at all. I have no idea how good they are. Clarice says, maybe this is a stupid question, but how many pieces do you create aside from YouTube? Because I've noticed the flamingo and there is no video. Now I'm curious. There is the video. You're just not finding it. It's there. Every single thing that I've created, pretty much aside from my little sketchbook, which are just loose little sketches that I kind of played with lately, everything ends up on YouTube. I don't have time to create artwork that doesn't end up on YouTube. So pretty much everything from 2012 on does have a video. Is it 2012? So yeah, the flamingo's there. Just look up Lachri and flamingo and you'll find it. But I usually create one new piece a week. Occasionally I'll break things up because it's going to take me longer and I don't want to rush it, so I'll break it up into 2 parts. Jonathan says, how would you recommend creating accurate skin color for portraits? Like Latino skin color versus light brown skin color. I use, if you look up Lachri and Color Match or Lachri Photoshop or Lachri, I think Color Match app. I've got 2 videos that really talk about that. Well, 3. For one thing, I can't tell you, even if I know the general skin tone of someone, so knowing that they're a Latino, so let's say they're going to have darker skin than I would. Okay, let's be realistic. Everyone has darker skin than I do. I don't go in the sun. Sounded like someone was at the door. No one came home early, did they? Hold on. Let me make sure no one's here. Because that was weird. Nope. Okay, I don't know what that was all about. Door's locked, so no one's getting in. But anyway, what was I talking about? Okay, so let's say you can't, if I put that same person, so we'll take the Latino person, if I put them in a lighting with cool light, and it's kind of more of the lighting like, I want to say like my old saltwater fish tank, and that's not what I mean, fluorescent lighting, where you've got that cooler, almost a blue tint, that is going to be very different than that same person under warm lighting. So I can't tell you, these are the colors you use, because it depends on the lighting. And I see this a lot where people are selling, here are your skin color reference. These are the colors you use to always draw skin. Those aren't real. That your work is all going to look the same. Yes, those are colors that can be used in skin, and it can look awesome. But you've got to consider your reference photo. If you really want your work to look realistic, you've got to consider what colors you're using in there. I mean, there were times I did the Jon Snow in colored pencil, and I used a ton of gray and blue in his skin. Those are not really colors you would assume would be in somebody's skin. Just depends on the light source. So I can't tell you this is the colors that you will always use. It depends, but look at those videos that I talked about. Look up Lachri and color matching app or Lachri in Photoshop, and I'll show you how I kind of get a better idea of what colors I do need. So that lets me work off my actual reference photo instead of saying, okay, somebody told me to always use this color and this color, so I'm going to just assume that's correct. Instead, it helps you to better choose the actual correct color for your reference. And there are some people, you put some people under certain lighting and you'll use a ton of purple. It really depends on the actual reference photo and the type of lighting on that person. Mara Black says, can you use the touch-up texture with some shaved pastel sticks to get different colors? I wouldn't recommend it because pastel is going to be a very different product. What I would do instead is where I've got this in white, when it dries, I can put another color on top of it and it's going to show up. So I could put yellow, I could put purple, and it's going to show up really well because I've got this opaque white base. So you can change the color that way. Just let it dry. I'd say at least 10 minutes before you put a color on top, because if it's not it may feel dry to the touch, but if it's not completely dry, the pencil can cause it to almost scrape off. But if it's completely dry, that won't happen. So let it dry, 10 minutes or so. But you can change the color that way. Fiddle Jewel says, is the texture titanium white and acrylic product? No, it is not. It's touch-up texture and then titanium white powder, which is a type of powdered colored pencil. Sarah Makes Art says, you always say not to use a photo taken with a flash for art, but to use one taken in natural light instead. What about photos taken with artificial light that's not a camera flash? It can be done depending on the artificial light. I mean, if I've got my big camera lights, I would want to put one light here and one on the other side. So I've got it coming from 45-degree angles this way at the art. You can do that. I find it to be more work. I find it to be way easier just to use natural light, but you can do that. You just want to use two light sources coming from the side at that 45-degree angle. You wouldn't want the artificial light straight at the artwork because you're going to get that glare and it'll wash things out. But it depends on the type of lights that you're using as to whether or not that will work well. But still no flash. Andrew says, can you use white acrylic instead of the white powder touch-up texture? And where can I get cheap airbrush stencils? No, you do not want to use acrylic paint on top of your colored pencils. These colored pencils are wax and oil based. So you don't want to use a water-based product on top of it that's not intended for that. So no, I would not recommend that. And what was the second question? Cheap airbrush stencils. You can try eBay. You can try Amazon. I've gotten some really good deals on those ones. And then you can also go to like Hobby Lobby. If you look at their craft section, it's not with their fine art stuff, although they do have some really nice airbrush stencils, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do. But you can use a 40% coupon and get a little bit of a discount that way. But look at their craft section. They have like for painting, doing faux finishes on your walls. They've got some really cool stencils that I've gotten there with those coupons. I want to say they ran about $15, but then I had a 40% coupon, so it wasn't that expensive. Oh, the wind is picking up out there. I'm blowing my curtains around. Scrolled too far again. Ryan Fine Art says, Prismacolor has increased their quality control. Last year when I went to Michael's, and nearly all were bent. I've been going to Michael's for months and every single one is perfect. You're getting lucky. From what I've heard, that is very hit or miss. They will have batches that are wonderful, and that's why you have a lot of people like, no, I've never had a problem with Prismacolor. Well, you've gotten some good batches. And then they are not so much. But I have not heard anyone saying that overall they've all been improved. You just have times where the quality seems to be good and then times where not so much. Georgia wants to know if I've tried shaving colored pencil and using this blender mix that you're using. No, because it seems like a huge waste of effort. First, I don't think it'll work very well because the pencils are too waxy. This is more of a powdery finish. So I don't think that it would be super effective anyway. And then the second thing is I can change the color once it's on here. I can just do this, keep it simple, use something that I already have pre-mixed, and then just put colored pencil on top of it. So the colored pencil sticks beautifully to this, so I can change this color because it's white. I can change it to any color in the world that I want by putting the pencil on top. And because of this having the touch-up texture in it, it's intended to have pencil go on top of it. It adds texture. So let's say you're thinking, well, I've already burnished that, so I'm not really going to be able to get the pencil to stick on top of this. Well, you will, because this is adding texture to any of those areas. See, this is already really drying out, so I'm going to have to rinse this out and make a new batch, even though I've got tons more that I want to do. Normally I would have gotten a lot further along with this white. It's because I keep stopping and talking and scrolling that I didn't get to use too much out of it. You would normally get a lot more use than what I just did. But that kind of shows you how quickly it dries, and so you want to mix very, very small amounts. Don't think, oh, well, but I need to do this on a lot of areas, so I'll just go ahead and mix a ton of it. That is not going to last you very, very long just because of that dry time. So like this is an area that I will want to be darker, but I want thin lines. So I'm going to go ahead and add the white, and then I will put another pencil on top. So it essentially works like a glaze with painting, where I will tint the color so this isn't super white there. Some of these I do want super white. Remember, when you're drawing feathers or fur, really watch the direction of each of your pencil strokes. Don't just start putting random lines everywhere. It ends up looking like a scribbled mess. Work slow and really pay attention to that reference photo. Mara Black says, I have a little line out of place, or a bristle out of place on my liner brush, and wants to know if it's driving me nuts. She'll trim it for me if I like. Yeah, I'll end up probably trimming that eventually. I'm just making sure I keep it upright, and I'm not even noticing it. Like at this angle, I can't even see that it's out of place. I obviously don't want to work this way because that would cause issues. So I'm just holding the brush so that that doesn't affect my work. So these are just little dots and little lines that I just can't get quite the same with a colored pencil as I can putting them on here with this touch-up texture titanium white mixture. So just hitting the tops of a lot of these. Georgia Baker says, have you tried re-wetting the dry white? Would that work? That's actually how I clean this. I would worry about the adhesiveness, so I don't want to personally try it on here. I may have to ask Aliona about that, but I don't know how that would affect the archival quality. I prefer just to mix smaller amounts and not worry about it, but I will have to ask her about that one because I don't know. But I do know that I can rinse this brush in water. But if I did add water to it, it's like, how much water do I add before I start affecting the archival thing? Because with water on top of an oil and colored oil-based pencils, or wax and oil-based, that's not so ideal. So I don't want a chance messing this up because I would like to eventually sell this piece, and I want to make sure it's going to be archival for that person. Now remember, when you use the touch-up texture titanium white, the only real negative with it is that it is not flexible. So I would not, let's say I wanted to ship this to the UK. Normally I would roll a colored pencil piece in a tube so that I could easily ship it. It would cost a lot less. I can't do that when I use these because it could crack or cause problems. It needs to be kept flat all the time. So you do not want to roll up artwork that you've used this product on. JPC13 Art wants to know how much this paper was. I'm not sure. I got a big pack of it. It was not very expensive, but I don't remember what actual amount I paid. I bought it quite a while ago, sometime last year, I believe. But get it. I don't know if I put a link to it in the video description. Get it from Dick Blick or Jerry's. It's way cheaper than Amazon. I looked on Amazon and the prices were kind of ridiculous. So do not buy this from Amazon. If I linked it to Amazon, it's just so you can see what it is. And anytime I link you guys, I've got the Amazon affiliate links for the products that I use. Sometimes that's absolutely the best price. Sometimes they change their prices and it either is no longer the best price or it wasn't to begin with, but it's easier for me just to link everything there so you can see what the product is. But do your own price checking. I'm not necessarily linking something because it's the best price, but there are times that I won't link it at all because the price is so ridiculous. And I'll just tell you guys to go check it out at Dick Blick. Bigelow Fine Art says, could you add more touch-up texture to the dried mixture, or is that what she asked previously? I'm actually just going to clean this out and start again. I could add more, but it's easy. I found it's much easier just to start fresh, wipe this out, and make another batch. If you guys are actually working on art with me, if you use on Instagram or Twitter, hashtag Lachri Live, I can easily go look and everyone can see what type of artwork everyone else is working on during the live stream. I keep forgetting to add that to this template for the video, so more people remember to use it. I forget about it too. But hashtag Lachri Live, and we can see what everyone was using or working on. Yeah, these here definitely need to be a lot brighter than what I was able to get with the pencils themselves. Orion Fine Art says, I got a lot of 50 gray pigment markers for free from a seller on eBay. What should I do with them? Would they look good as monotone paintings? I would say, yeah, do a bunch of the single just gray tones. I think that would look really cool. Quinn says, what is the chicken painting in the background? The chicken's not painting anything tonight. Chicken is in there. I think I left him listening to Addams Family, because he has been messing that song up pretty bad lately because he mixes it in with Game of Thrones. So it's like, you know, the first bar of Addams Family, and then it moves to Game of Thrones, and then he does the click from Addams Family at the end of the Game of Thrones. It's actually kind of hilarious. But I've been replaying some of his old songs so he remembers them. Mara Black wants to know if I would use the white for the bright light in the highlight of the eye. I just read that wrong, but you guys get the gist. Or just a white pencil. Here I would use a pencil because that white highlight shouldn't be very bright. There's actually no highlight in the reference photo at all. I added one because the eye looks too flat without it so that I could get a little bit of a curve, but I don't think I'm going to put anything in there. I may test it. The nice thing is if I test it and it doesn't look good, it's no big deal because I can just put colored pencil back over it and tone it back down. But I'm going to rinse this off. We'll go back to pencils for a bit. But I wanted you to see how I'm using this and what a difference that makes in pulling out those highlights that just don't, the colored pencil, they're, even the opaque, most opaque, they're too translucent against the black paper. So you're never going to have things super, super white. This, however, will let you have it white because it is so opaque. And it is one of my favorite things with colored pencil right now. Because even if I do a colored pencil piece where even if I airbrush the background and then I do colored pencil like I did on the hummingbirds, I'm still going to use this for highlights because this can do things I just can't get my pencils to do on their own. Quinn says, was the chicken, okay, no, there we go. Oh, unless you were asking what is the chicken painting in the background. If you mean the one over there, I think I may have misunderstood you. You mean the pink pond chicken. That is a flamingo. It's a mixture of black and white with colored for part of the face. And that is here. If you look up Lachri and flamingo, you should be able to see the video here on YouTube. I misunderstood because you didn't specify the pink pond chicken. You just said chicken, so I thought you meant my chicken. Okay, back to pencils. Little detail. I'm going to switch back over to my black pencils. God, I still can't get over what a difference that makes. I get so excited about this product because it has allowed me to achieve a look that I was just struggling with getting my pencils to do because I'm really bad about leaving the white of the paper right, or, you know, as bright as it should be. I don't even have to worry about that anymore. I love this stuff so much. No, again, I am not affiliated. I don't get any cut or anything if you guys buy it. It's just one that I absolutely love, and I don't get out much, so it doesn't take much to excite me. And what I will do is with this mixture that I made in this little cup, I'm just going to rinse it out in the sink and it'll kind of flake out. I can pick it out because it doesn't stick to the plastic that well. So I will just keep reusing. I've been using the same little disposable condiment cup for months. It washes out really easily. Yeah, and you guys, unfortunately, it looks like everything, unless is it just a, do I have my, nope, it's set to HD. It's overexposed a little bit with what the detailing is here. You'll see on the finished drawing, I'll post it on social whenever I finish this. Well, it'll have to be finished tonight, but I'll post a good photo of it probably tomorrow or the next day. But you'll also see on next Wednesday's video the contrast here and the detailing that this is washing out. Let me see if I can move this, if it makes a difference. Yeah, if I move that back, you can see a little bit better. Kinda. Yeah, a little bit better. You can see where the white is here. It just stands out so nicely. But of course now I can't see what I'm doing, so we're gonna pull that light back. And then one thing that I changed here, and I'll probably pull this up higher, I've got the hint of an eye. Now this eye, being that he's in shadow, that actual eye is so much bigger in the reference photo than this one is. I made mine a little bit smaller just to kind of, so it wasn't like, it didn't look quite so weird, but I'll probably even make it a little bit more squinty on this side because it looks very odd. When I stand at a distance, it looks like he's doing this, which is what he's actually doing. But in my artwork, that is something that I adjusted a bit. Georgia Baker says, rewetting the white in the solution, not water. You mean with the touch-up texture? I would end up with more touch-up texture than I would the white. My balance would be off. So I'm not sure if that would actually be the best way to do that. I am just going to rinse it and make a new batch altogether, just to be sure. Andrew says, before you found out about touch-up texture and the white powder, what did you use to make the white highlights? Just my pencil. I would just keep the pencil sharp. What I would do, let's say here I knew I was going to want white and I was working on white paper. I would take my luminance white, or any wax-based white, so if you're using Prismacolor, use that, and push really hard and put that white down first. And what that would do is sort of protect it, so when I worked around it with my darker colors, it would help me not to get too dark where my white needed to be. But even then, it still doesn't keep it as white as what this can do. But that is how I used to do, like whiskers. I would pre-draw them in with a wax-based pencil, usually, again, my wax-based luminance, and then work around it and try to let the white of the paper show through. But that's a lot harder to control. It is so much easier to go on top of the white like I did here. Now, I can take a white pencil. I'll show you both with the luminance and with the Prismacolor, or I'm sorry, the Polychromos, once I find my sharpener. Do a little rearranging up here. Oh, there's one other thing I want to show you guys when blending with odorless mineral spirits on the black paper. So both of these, I can brighten areas up a bit. You can see it, but you can't see it as much as that. It's not nearly as high of a contrast. And then of course it's going to be even less with the Polychromos because that's more translucent. So I can get white highlights to an extent. It just doesn't compare to what I can get with this. But normally, traditionally, the way that we've done that with colored pencil before this product is to, some people use gel pens. I don't recommend it. They're not archival. They're not intended to be used with colored pencil where this product is. So you can run into archival issues where it flakes off and has problems that way, where this won't do that. But traditionally, what artists have done has let the white of the paper show through. Just try to work around the areas that you need to be super bright. That's going to keep it the brightest. Now, when using the odorless mineral spirits, I'm going to show you how much, just so you don't freak out if you're using that on this paper. Let me find a small brush and my paper towel. So this, when I go over this area, look how it darkens it up. You're going to think, oh my gosh, I just lost all my color. It just erased it. It did not. What's happening is it looks translucent right now. When it dries, it'll go back to where it was. But it's not actually erasing it. It's blending, but because I've got black paper underneath, what you're used to seeing probably if you've worked on white paper and you use the odorless mineral spirits, you think, well, that doesn't happen. Well, yeah, because you're against the white paper, but right now you're making that color basically temporarily is more translucent and that black paper is showing through. Once it dries, that will be back to being as bright as it was. So don't let that scare you or make you feel like you just erased all the work you just did. Let it dry and the color will come back. Or the opacity will come back, I should say. Put the lid back on that. Barbara Lovelace wants me to make that face again. Which face was it? I don't know. I make faces all the time and don't even realize I'm doing it until I edit videos. And I'm like, well, that was attractive. I should never do that again. Mara Black says, have you ever used a blade scalpel type to lift color to get through the colors if you needed white to show? Because I use the odorless mineral spirits, that technique doesn't work really well for me. That works best with artists who have been burnishing because the white of the paper is still white underneath. With me, because I'm using the odorless mineral spirits, it's kind of dissolving the pigment into the paper, so I'm essentially staining the paper. There's no more white left, so that doesn't work really well for me. I've tried it a few times on hair just to lighten it, because I can still lighten it, but I'm never going to get back to white. I don't think I've got enough pencil. I think that works best. Like Heather Rooney does that, but she's burnishing. She's pushing harder, and so that method works really well for her. I've never gotten it to work well for how I work. I have tried it, though. It doesn't work. Picks by Lee says, I am now Derwent crazy. Thanks for that. I got some Inktense blocks, Inktense pencils, and so forth. Have you used the grate and shake for the Inktense blocks? No, and I asked them, they need to send me one of those because I want to try that. And I forgot to ask them when I told them what else. Because she asked me recently, it was like a month ago, but when it comes from the UK, it takes like months to get here. But I'm supposed to be getting the Polycolor colored pencils to try out. Or no, I keep saying Polycolor, ProColor, their new colored pencils to try out. And she asked me what other products I wanted. I'm like, I need a new electric sharpener because the one that I've used, well, mine still works. You guys don't sell it anymore. So I'd like one that you do sell so I can link to you guys products that work or that you can still purchase. But I forgot about that. That's one of those things I next time I talk to him, I'll have to ask. I'm surprised that I've still got ice cubes in this tea. Okay, back to work. Enough talking. If you guys have, oh, well, maybe some of you wouldn't have seen, but if you are, if you speak Spanish, I know some of my recent videos, Conejo has been translating into Spanish. So we've got Spanish subtitles now on some of those, which is really cool. I want to say he's done like 5 or 6, I don't know, a lot. And I can't even imagine the amount of work, but you guys should, if you like or prefer things in Spanish, you can see that on some recent videos now. Although chances are if you're watching this right now, you speak English. I'm going to guess. I really regret not focusing more on my Spanish classes in high school. It's enough that I can kind of read things and have a general idea of what someone is saying, but I have to use Google Translate to double check my lack of skills there. I'm really jealous of those of you, like it was just given to you, that they can speak more than one language. My brain does not work that way. Oh, I was imitating the face of the owl with the eyes. Let's see. Andrew says, whenever I use the wet into wet blending technique with the airbrush spray, the paint dries too quickly as I work on a huge canvas. Any tips? Work more with more water. If you're spraying with the airbrush and it's still drying, you're not spraying enough with the airbrush. Spray more. You're just going to have to learn a balance with that. And I recommend start smaller. Start using that technique with something that's maybe a 18 by 24. Don't jump into the 48 by 60 inch canvas when you're learning to blend wet into wet. Start out with something a little bit smaller, 16 by 20, 18 by 24. I mean, you could even go to a 24 by 30. That's not super, super huge. But get to where you're comfortable blending on a slightly smaller scale before you jump into the big ones. It's going to make it a lot easier for you because those bigger ones, keeping a big canvas wet, there's some coordination there. And what I usually do, I'll keep the airbrush in my left hand, and with my right hand, I've got my paint and my blending tools, and I'm using both hands back and forth because I don't need a ton of super fine control when I'm just airbrushing water. But work a little bit smaller. Don't jump into something huge until you really master blending wet into wet. It will make your life much, much easier. Mara Black wants to know if Conejo will be ad-libbing. No, he is not. He's actually, because I can actually the way Google works and how it kind of shows you what the person said, you're able to easily check to make sure there's no random swear words or anything like that. And he's done an absolutely amazing job. So he's actually, I know some people were surprised, very well behaved in that. Paul wants to know if I had to pay for the reference photo or did I do you only need to get the permission from the photographer? This is from wildlifereferencephoto.com. You have to pay for this one. If you go to like Pixabay or one of those are supposed to all be royalty free, although sometimes those are stolen photos that someone did not have the rights to post, in which case you could get in trouble for using it, and that's a whole other issue that occasionally happens. If you know a photographer, like not obviously this one you would have to buy, but let's say you know a photographer who took it. If you get written permission from them to use that photo in your artwork, then you're good. But you don't have to exchange money as long as you've got written permission from that photographer. William says he will teach me Spanish 101. Good. Hopefully I will learn more than I need to go to the bathroom. I think that's the extent of, and your dog has parvo and will be dead in the morning. I used to work in an animal hospital in an area where parvo is horrible, so I learned how to say that, unfortunately. That sounds terrible. Okay, this is what happens when people don't vaccinate their dogs, which was the case in this area. Baby Panda says, I am new here, so this is a basic question for you. What does the mineral spirits actually do for the colored pencil? What it's doing is dissolving the binders, and it kind of, it sort of like melts it into the paper. And so instead of having the wax or oil binders using it and everything else that's in there, it's not just wax and oil, but it almost melts it. It dissolves it into the paper, so you don't have as much of the white of the paper showing through. It takes several layers, but that's what that's doing. That's kind of the short, non-sciencey version. Pix by Lee says, I made sure when I inquired with Derwent about my allergies that I blamed you. I mean, gave credit where I heard about their products. That's funny. Let's see. If you've talked to one of the nicest ladies for Derwent is Astri. She is the sweetest, nicest woman in the world. I got to meet her in Salt Lake City when I went and worked at their booth. She's from London. Oh my gosh. Seriously, one of the nicest people ever. Like, everyone who worked there was wonderful, but I really, really liked her. And I like how she looks at stuff. Like, she's not like, I don't expect you to just use our products, because she knows I use lots of different things. I use, different colored pencils. I don't use the Derwent Color Soft, for example. She's like, it's not going to be for, not every product is for everybody. Use what you like, but I don't expect, like in my case where I've worked with them, she's like, I don't expect you to use something that isn't working for your techniques. Like, just her outlook and stuff is really, really cool. I like them. And her attitude about wanting to improve products, wanting to make products that artists want, versus companies like Prismacolor are like, here's what we're giving you. We don't care that it's defective. This is what you get. So I really like that. Catherine Sullivan says, I bought the Luminance white pencil, but I still can't get my whites to show even after using odorless mineral spirits. And I keep a sharp point. What am I missing? Thanks. Well, it's never going to be super, super white. I mean, here's the Luminance. Let's put some over here. I'm pushing pretty hard, and that's as much as it's going to show up on top of another color. If I want white, like what I've got here, I'm going to need to use a different product or have let the white of the paper show through. This is going to lighten it, but it's never, I'm pushing really hard here. It is never going to go back up to as white as what you see in other areas that I've used the Touch-Up Texture Titanium White. It's going to lighten it, but only so much. You can also use the Derwent Drawing Chinese White. This one is fairly opaque, but even that, I'm getting a little bit lighter, pushing pretty hard. This is a much thicker pencil, so this one does show up a little bit more, but it's not going to get your paper to as white as it originally was, assuming you're working on white paper, or as white as what I can do with the Touch-Up Texture Titanium White mixture. It will basically lighten it. That's the extent. Pix by Lee says, have you used Stonehenge watercolor paper for the pencils or Inktense? Sorry if I missed this somewhere. Stonehenge, do they list it as watercolor paper? I've used Stonehenge. I'm not sure of when that was called Stonehenge watercolor paper. I used the regular Stonehenge. I've used both in the pad and the big individual sheets. I don't like the pad. It doesn't have enough tooth for me for colored pencil, but I have used the individual sheets and loved that. But I don't think that was listed as watercolor paper. I don't know if they've got another one. Jessica says she might just check to make sure that Conejo actually behaved in his translation. Okay, and so basically what I'm going to be doing for the rest of this piece, most of this is done. What I'm doing, and I'll have to do this a lot over here, I've just got a lot of, oops, my reference photo, I can't see that area now. I've just got a lot of little details in this area that I've got to clean up. And that's pretty much all I'm going to be spending the rest of tonight. Coffee, or well, probably green tea, and drawing little details. But this is, I don't know, this for me, this is the fun part. What a lot of people will do is they'll go, okay, it's done. Well, you didn't finish this whole section. Go take the time needed. And with colored pencil, it is slow, but take the time needed, because that's the fun part. Getting all these little details are what's going to make it go from looking cool to looking super realistic. You can make such a difference in your work and spending a bit more time with those little details. And here, that pencil, I probably should sharpen. I don't know where my sandpaper went. That would work at this point, now that I'm getting to these little details. But just remember, colored pencil isn't one you can really rush. I will say, though, this black paper, I can move so much faster on this than I can white paper. Like, the difference in how long this is taking me, it's huge how quickly this can be done on this. Now, here's an area. This was done with the white pencil, and I need that to be a lot darker. And the thing is, this pencil, if I just put this on top of the black, it doesn't show up that well. But because I put the white down first, I can now take this, and it shows up much nicer than it did just over the black. So I made something that was a bit more opaque to get my translucent colors to show up better. But I started with that first by putting the white or putting the creams that were more opaque. And now I can tint that color with the more translucent ones as needed. Eric Dross says, where's the Spanish video? I'll be the judge. He did the cheetah video. He did, I'm trying to think which other ones he recently did. I know the cheetah was one. I think he did the one from last Thursday about or if you need to go to art school. Which other ones has he done? My mind is drawing a blank right now. I think I can look it maybe up on here. Not sure if I'll be able to see through the YouTube studio. I think I might have to be at my actual desktop to see the translation section. Yeah, this is YouTube settings. Yeah, I can't see it that way. But those are two that I know he has done. Oh, there we go. Valerie says that Stonehenge has a Stonehenge aqua paper now. No, I have not tried that. I haven't even heard of it yet. Vladimir says, I just tried to factor in odorless mineral spirits into my math homework. I am not a skilled multitasker. You sound like you're as good at math as my sister, who's currently failing her math classes. Don't get tutoring from her. I wonder if she's watching. She was planning on watching tonight. She should be studying math. I make fun of her, but I'm just as bad at math. Math has never been my strong point. When I was in high school, I always got good grades in math. Well, usually a B, sometimes an A minus. But I mean, I did okay grade-wise with those, but I had to go before school and after school for tutoring with the math teachers, and thank God they were willing to do that for me. I don't know why my brain is just like, math, no. This is not algebra. This is not, you are not going to understand this. So good luck. And I would spend from junior high through all of high school, so much of my after school time, like I didn't have a lot of time after because so much of my time was spent doing homework. I was so slow at it, which is funny because you guys know I talk fast, I paint fast. Everything I do is very fast. You get math in front of me and it's like my brain just completely shuts off, gives me the finger and takes a nap. So it was not good. So it's kind of funny for me to be making fun of my sister who is having the same trouble. Apparently it's a genetic thing for us. Mara Black says, do you put the powder blender down first for your background, then the pencil or the blender, and then the fixative? What if you just started with colored pencil first, not sure of the correct order? Okay, when working with powder blender, which is not what I'm doing here. When I work with powder blender, I'm working on a non-absorbent surface, so either sanded paper or gessoed paper, always. From there, I will, and generally, I prefer sanded paper now. Now that I've got a little bit more experience with it, that is my preference. From there, I put down the pencil first, but I only use the oil-based pencil. I do not put down wax-based if I'm planning to blend. If I need to blend with powder blender, I do not like how it works with wax-based pencils. The wax sticks to the paper too much, so it doesn't blend out very well. If you're going to use wax-based pencils, that's when you want to put down powder blender first, then the wax-based on top of that and blend out. But I still am not thrilled with the results I've gotten when I tried doing that. So I just stick with my oil-based pencils if I'm going to blend with powder blender, and I save my wax-based pencils for final details that will not need to be blended out. They are great for your final details because they stick so well and they're so opaque and bold, and they're great. So it's not like you only want to use oil-based with them. I'm just saying I don't like blending with that. But yeah, if you're going to use wax-based and try to blend, that's when you're supposed to put powder blender down first. For me, because I use the oil base, I just put the paper straight on the paper, on the paper. I put the pencil on the paper, blend out with the powder blender, and then spray my fixative, or my, yeah, fixative. That is the right word, isn't it? Yeah, we're at the end of 2 hours, so my brain is down. It's almost like I'm doing math, but it gave me the finger and walked away. But yeah, I will use the, what is it called? Something fixative. Touch-up, not touch-up texture, touch-up fixative? Final, no, workable fixative. How? That's the word I'm looking for. I'll do the workable fixative, let it dry completely, then do my pencil again. Again, it'll be polychromos. Blend out with powder blender, then my fixative, and I just continuously work that way. I don't have to put powder blender down first because I'm not blending with my wax-based pencils. I hope that makes sense. I'll answer a couple more questions before we wrap up tonight. I just found an 8x8 pad. It was not what Amazon's preview said. Package smells like latex, so I haven't opened it yet till I asked them. It's 100% cotton and 90 pound, not 140. 90 pound watercolor paper. That is thin. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Maybe it's good. I don't know. Vladimir says, I'm aiming to be a physics major, so this probably won't end well. Oh my gosh, good luck. I had taken, I forget which class I had to take that went along with chemistry. I had to drop both and go back to algebra. Like I could not, my brain just, I think the problem was I was in algebra and tried to take chemistry, and you were supposed to have been doing, was it calculus and then chemistry at the same time? But because I had done so well in my previous science classes, they put me in chemistry then, they put me in there before I was at that stage math-wise, so it didn't work. It didn't end well for me. I didn't go back to chemistry after that. I mean, I dropped the class and never took it again. I was like, yeah, I don't have interest in this. Moonram says, do you see any difference in layering between Fabriano and Canson Mi-Teintes? I find that the pencil, I get more pencil sticking to this. Like I get more coverage faster on the Canson Mi-Teintes than I do on the Fabriano. The Fabriano is a little bit smoother, so it doesn't stick, like not as much pigment sticks to the paper on your first few layers. With the Canson Mi-Teintes, it's got just, I don't know, it's almost a perfect, for me, I love the texture of this. So I really need to get some white paper and see if I still feel the same about it. But at least on the black, I'm able to get more pencil down more quickly than I seem to be able to on the Fabriano. Now, again, that can be a difference of working on black paper versus working on white. It may just be that because I'm using the white or the black of the paper showing through, that's making it a lot easier. I mean, if I had to get any of this super black, that would have taken forever, versus here I'm just letting the paper show through. But the texture on this, I absolutely love with colored pencil. I think it sticks to it so well, which is a good thing because I need it to stick well, being that it is, the pencils are so translucent compared to the paper. Clara says, would using Derwent Chinese writing white also work for highlights? I don't know what that one is, so I'm not sure. I use the Derwent drawing Chinese white, the drawing Chinese white, but I don't know about Chinese writing white. I'm not sure what that set comes from. Max J says, it's looking amazing. Thank you. It's good to hear some videos will be available with Spanish subtitles. Greeting from Argentina. Hello from very far away. I have a friend who is currently living in Argentina. He used to live up here, and now he's down there living with his dad. I guess it's so different than here. He really likes it. And I guess you guys also have way better coffee than we do, from what he said. Let's see. Black Cat says, "Hi Lisa, what is the best way to get better? Would love to get into colored pencil, but I need to focus on drawing. Do you suggest any specific drills or just draw objects, still life, etc.?" Actually, I'm going to be talking about this a bit on an upcoming critique. One of the greatest way, or no, it was an upcoming Q&A. A really good way to get started with colored pencil: start drawing roses. Start working on layering there, because you start layering and learning how to create something that looks three-dimensional, but if it's a little bit off, it still looks like a rose. It's not that big of a deal. Like when you jump into trying to draw portraits, trying to draw animals, if I've got the eye over here, it's going to be pretty obvious. If I'm drawing a rose and I've got a petal, an extra one over here, it doesn't look deformed like a person with an extra arm would look. So it's not as critical that everything be exactly right. I recommend people get started with roses. That was always one of my favorite ways or favorite subjects for people to start, like a single rose. I'm not saying a full bouquet. I think that gets overwhelming. When you are first starting, get a good photo. I found one too on Pixabay that was just gorgeous. Well, there's tons of them on Pixabay that are just gorgeous. Get decent photos of roses and practice the layering and blending, because there's a lot of layering and blending there. And if you can get really good at that, you can apply what you learn from learning to shade, draw, and blend a rose to just about anything else. So really, really helpful, I think. Mara says, "I need my nap." I honestly already had it. I had it before this. It was unfortunately cut short. I don't know what woke me up, but it was only half as long as it should have been. Oops, scrolled too far. Where did we go? Melissa says, "I'm marrying a physics PhD student, so he does all my math." That's awesome. One of my best friends, she is a genius, like math genius. She does the Rubik's cubes, like, because I guess it's math, that's math based, and she'll have it solved instantly. You cannot get her a Rubik's cube that she doesn't have solved in a couple of minutes. So, and we've gotten her really big ones, and it doesn't matter. She actually had a custom one made for me where everything was teal, like every single cube was teal. That was the only way I could solve it. Yeah, she was making fun of me. But anyway, she's my go-to math person. So Sapphire Dragon, wow, that was hard for me to read for some reason, says, "Married a civics engineer. He does the math. I fix his spelling." You know, it's bad. I'm not even good at spelling and math. I'm better at spelling than I am at math, but honestly, it's because of autocorrect. I have apps that help me to spell better. When I was a kid, my mom started making me do extra spelling tests at home because my spelling was so bad. And it seemed mean at the time, but my best friend growing up, she used to make fun of me because we would write notes back then. We didn't have text or phone, so everything were handwritten notes. And tomorrow, I couldn't spell tomorrow. I would do 2 M's instead of 2 R's. She made fun of me so bad, I will never forget how to spell that word. She made fun of me with that for like months, and I finally got so sick of it. It's like, I'm going to write this 1,000,000 times and never be made fun of for it again. So that's one word I've got down, but yeah, I've never been great with any of that. Oops, scrolled too far yet again. Andrew says, or asks, "Do you still airbrush gesso over the Fabriano Artistico hot press 140-pound watercolor paper?" The only time I would gesso it is if I'm going to use powder blender over it. I have no other use for it besides that, but I don't personally do that anymore either because it was too much work. It is so much easier for me just to go grab a piece of sanded paper that I already have mounted because I bought it that way, and I like the results I get on the sanded paper. So it's not, if I liked the gessoed paper 1,000,000 times more, then it would be worth doing. But I like the sanded paper just fine, so I would rather save the time of prepping the work and just go grab my already pre-made board. So no, I don't, you probably won't see me gessoing the paper and working with a powder blender that way. You'll probably only see me working on sanded paper, but no, either way works fine. I'm just being lazy and don't want to prep the paper. Mara Black says, "Have you tried those Chinese pencils that peel, especially the white?" No, I have not. I've not even heard of them. Eric Draw says, "What's the latest HR that you drink coffee?" Huh? Oh, the latest hour. Sorry. I don't understand text speak, so it's really hard when you guys write like you and not YOU. It's really hard for me to do that, so anything being cut short, my brain's like, nope, we're not doing that either. I'm too old. The latest hour I drink coffee, I can usually, well, okay, so that I don't get an upset stomach, because that's my problem with too much caffeine. My adrenaline is always on like high mode, going way too much. So I basically have 2 cups a day. I can have one in the morning, and I'll usually have one at night around 7 or 8. If I drink later because I like the taste, I will go to decaf. If I do 2 cups of coffee, like, or more than the 2 cups with caffeine, I will end up pretty sick. So yeah, but usually about 8 or 9, but there have been times where I had coffee at midnight and I'm still an hour later, I am out. Caffeine does not really keep me awake that much. I can go to sleep on a gallon of Starbucks. Okay, we are, let's see. Yep, we are at 10:09, and I'm pretty much caught up on the comments. I was just reading some other ones, but we are done, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for joining. Again, make sure to check out our moderators' channels, Valerie and Joseph Fincham. They both got channels here on YouTube. You can say a huge thank you to them by subscribing to them. I could not do this without them helping me, so yay. Stormcat says Dunkin' is better than Starbucks. You have been lied to, miss. I am sorry. I like the sugar in Starbucks. I've never been a huge Dunkin' Donuts fan. But anyway, yeah, we are just going to wrap this up. Again, thank you so much. And I have zero idea what we're doing next week. I know tomorrow night I've got to, just to get caught up, because I've got the people, which is kind of fun, so I can tell you guys this. The people who do Smart Art Box, there are 2 people who run that business. They're coming over, and we're going to do a Smart Art Box project together and record it. And I need to talk to them, because I kind of want to do it as a 360-degree video, so you can kind of look around the room and see what all 3 of us are working on. But that, I want to say that's this coming week we're going to be working on that, so I'm not sure when that video will go live, but it's going to take up extra time this week. And then the following week my parents are going to be here for a few days, so I'm kind of trying to get a lot done all at once, and getting sick this week didn't help. That set me back a bit. So I know that tomorrow night my own self goal is to finish. I'm just going to do a little 8x10. It'll be a flower, a yellow flower. I'm going to give it to my mom for Mother's Day when she's here. But I'm going to do that, and it'll be a photorealistic. It's a macro shot, really pretty shot, but it's very small. My goal is to get that finished start to finish tomorrow night, so that puts me 1 week ahead. And the next project after that, gosh, I'm tired. After that, I'm not sure what that is going to be yet, so we'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, thank you again for joining, and I will see you guys next week. I was going to say tomorrow, but tomorrow's Friday because my days are screwed up. I won't see you tomorrow. I'll see you Saturday. Bye, guys.